Good evening, everybody. Welcome to FilmSnobbery Live. I am your host, Nic Baisley. I am joined by my co-host, as usual, Mr. Jerry Cavallero, director of Stuck Like Chuck, available shortly, August 15th, 17th? 15th? 17th. I knew I got the date wrong. Sorry. But I want to welcome everyone to the show tonight. We've got a great show for everyone. I'm actually really excited. We got a great guest on. He is the director of the awesome web series Vampire Mob, and he's got a lot of other talents, as we're finding out here behind the scenes too. We're going to talk about a little bit about all of those. I want to first thank, I don't know if I've wore this on the show before, but I'm going to thank the people who got it. I'm wearing a shirt here for American Norton. It's a direct documentary that is actually being filmed right now about Norton motorcycles by Mr. Tom Parker. He was actually nice enough to come down to the studio personally to give me this shirt, and I told him I'd wear it on, the next show that I had it, available. So American Norton, check it out. It's going to be coming out, so film festivals and stuff like that, keep an eye out. He's the director of a previous another motorcycle documentary called The Fowler Formula. I saw it at the Orlando Film Festival last year. It was actually really good, really well shot. It was his first documentary, so I'm really anxious to see American Norton, just to see how he's grown as a filmmaker, what lessons he's learned kind of as he's grown. Really excited. He's doing a nice little road trip type of deal kind of around the country. So very excited for him, and glad to see that he's out there and he's sustaining himself as a filmmaker. So we've got a great show for you guys. Other than that, again, we have Mr. Joe Wilson, director of Vampire Mob, who's going to be joining us very shortly. We also have our Indiegogo Project of the Week, and then we also have something else I want to talk about a little bit later in the show. I'm going to kind of hold it as a surprise for now, but stay tuned because it's awesome. And obviously, once again, we do have a contest where this week you can win a Movie Maker magazine subscription as well as a T-shirt courtesy of First Glance Film Festival. So, which is they're actually going to be in Philadelphia in October. So, kind of. If you're on the East Coast, there's no excuse to not go to this festival. Come up from Florida, come down from where I am in Massachusetts. I'll be there, so at least that's the idea. So it's going to be really good. I want to go ahead real quick. We're going to jump right into it because we've got tons of show, lots of stuff to cover. I want to go ahead and I'm going to show you guys the teaser trailer first for Vampire Mob, for Season 2 of Vampire Mob. And when we come back, we're going to talk with the man himself, Joe Wilson. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Hey, almost dead guy. In your next life, lay off the fucking cologne.
I love that right there at the end. This is Indie TV. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome our guest tonight, Mr. Joe Wilson.
Hey, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, sir. A pleasure. Absolutely. Long overdue. How are you?
I'm great. I feel like I've just talked to you recently.
Well, it's I have that feeling too. It's a little deja vu type of thing. No, yeah, Joe and I were talking a little bit before the show. Just kind of, we never talked before other than Twitter, which is we were also talking about was a fantastic way to connect with your audience and kind of stay up to date on stuff. And we also found out him and I have a lot of things in common, which is great, including mutual disdain for a lot of things, which is funny because I was talking to someone the other day and I said to them, I was actually talking to this girl and I said, I know that when I find the right girl to settle down with, it's going to be a girl that she hates the same things I do. And that's what we're going to bond over. We're, our mutual hate for certain things and people.
Honestly, my wife and I, we've been married for 14 years. We've been together for 20. And a lot of our relationship is built on that same, doesn't that suck? Yeah, that does suck.
Exactly. No, it's. I bet you it's just like 90% of it's just like, yeah, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is I am definitely she's the much, if she's the good cop, I'm the bad cop, period, just in life. And she's just a very nice person. And I'm much more direct and perhaps a little too adjective prone, and but she'll still be like, yeah, you're right. You're still going too far, but you're right.
Now, let me ask you, and I ask this a lot to people who are in relationships and do kind of things in the creative field. Is she very supportive of Vampire Mob and the other work that you do and your career in general?
She's a consulting producer in the credits, and it's not just like a bullshit thing that I gave to my wife. But she read all the drafts of all the scripts. She looks at all the cuts before anybody else. She went to school for painting, actually at the museum school in Boston, the Museum of Fine Arts.
Nice.
Art school. And that's kind of, we've also bonded over, I went to art school for photography, and we sort of bonded over that. Working at a restaurant, Davio's, an Italian restaurant in Boston.
I love that restaurant.
Yeah, she worked at the one in Brookline, and then they opened one and actually this goes back to Vampire Mob. Watch how I do this. It'll be an amazing segue.
I'm loving it.
So she worked at the one in Brookline, and Steve DiFilippo, who owned both the Newbury Street one and the one in Brookline, opened one in the Royal Sonesta Hotel in Cambridge, right on the Charles River next to the Museum of Science.
Yep.
And I worked there, and when the restaurant was going to come in, I was going to probably lose my job as a barback. And so I applied and ended up bartending for Davio's, and that is how I ended up meeting Mafia guys, because we were right around the corner from the Cambridge courthouse.
Yep, Boston Mafia. Gotta love it.
Yeah, and I lived in the North End in the late 80s when the Patriarca family got busted.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a couple of regulars who were mob guys, and then I had this one guy who was coming in like, I was working the day shift when I first started, of course. So I'm getting this guy, he's coming in at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and he's drinking an espresso and Sambuca. He's got the turtleneck, the jacket, really charismatic, charming, really nice guy. And I find out that he is Frank Salemi Jr., Cadillac Frank Salemi, who was supposed to take over the New England mob. And then somebody tried to kill him in the late 80s. He went and hid out with John Gotti in New York, as the story goes. And then, so I've got this guy sitting at my bar. I had no idea who he was. And one of the other bartenders was like, you know who that guy is? He's like the son of the guy who's supposed to take over the mob. And he offered me a job at the strip club that was in the old Channel Rock Club in 4 Point Channel. And he offered help getting me studio space, like really nice guy. And then one of the bartenders, at like 11 o'clock at night, my phone rings, and it's Elaine from Revere. And she's like, Joe, turn on the fucking TV. Frank's on the TV. And the FBI set up a production company in Santa Monica and busted Cadillac Frank Salemi, Frank Salemi Jr., and Whitey Bulger, and a bunch of other guys for racketeering back in 1995. And that was the end of him coming into the bar.
Wow, that you just gave like everyone a brief history of Boston, and the funny part is like that's the only interesting parts of Boston is all the corruption.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's other interesting things too, but yeah, the Boston Mafia, man, I based the world of Vampire Mob on kind of like coming, like we don't, the audience doesn't know the off-screen logic of sort of how I have it designed, but the idea is that this is after a major bust like the one that they just did in New York. And so there's no power, like there's no power structure. It's a mess. People are, and that's why it's been great for Don. And so I actually have a character in Vampire Mob called Cadillac Frank.
Nice. Now, for everyone out there who I know everyone should be familiar with Vampire Mob by now, but let's go a little bit backwards in time here. You're in season 2 now. You had obviously it must have had a successful enough season 1 to warrant a season 2. How did you kind of get started with this? I mean, obviously we kind of have an idea of where you came up with the thought and the plot for this. But now, how did you go ahead, casting and getting everything? How did you get from Boston to L.A.?
I actually, let's see, I'll compress a tremendous amount of history in 60 seconds. Started as a kind of photojournalist, documentary photographer, got really frustrated with the media and was trying to do commercial stuff to pay for the more kind of social, whatever stuff. And then just kind of came to the conclusion that photography, which I wanted to do since I was 11, I went to school for it and I'd been published in newspapers and magazines and done like fashion spreads and all that kind of stuff. I just hit the wall and I just stopped. And I was really like kind kind of classic post-art school, working at a bar or hotel, and I was drawing in sketchbooks, and I really had no idea what the hell I was going to do with my life at all. And I kept drawing these things, and I'm like, I could build this. And I started to build one of them, and I didn't know I was kind of like starting to make installations, and I ended up being like an installation artist, and then I started getting into, and all my stuff was like videos, like motion controlled, and then I started getting into performance art, and then I started doing stand-up comedy, and I wrote a solo show, which ended up getting a grant, and I got to tour with a little bit, and then I co-wrote and performed another show at Mobius in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I was a member of the Mobius Artist Group, which is Boston's artist-run center for experimental work in all media. I can still do that. But it was cool because it was like, dance people, sound people, musicians.
So future waiters and mall workers of America.
No, actually, everybody, they were all professors
Oh, that's
at
good.
Brandeis, at Berklee College of Music, at the School Museum of Fine Arts.
Oh, wow.
I was the only waiter.
Ah.
They were all professors. And so I did this show called Subject to Stress, and it got noticed by Carsey Werner out in Los Angeles that made like Cosby and Grace Under Fire and Roseanne.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea who they were. No idea. Like, I'm talking to them, and they were like, "Hey, we're reading your reviews in the Boston Phoenix and the Globe, and it sounds like you're doing some great stuff." I'm like, "Thanks." I'm like, "Hey, so what do you guys do?" They're like, "Well, we make Cosby and Grace Under Fire." I'm like, "I have heard of those TV shows." I had no idea who I was talking to. And that just kind of got the door going to L.A. and sort of was doing the writer stand-up actor thing. Did a pilot. Actually, I told you I did a pilot with Michael J. Fox.
Yep.
And his wife Tracy Pollan for it was DreamWorks. It was a big pilot. Tony Roberts was in it. Phyllis Diller. It was like 98. It was like a year after I got out here. I got really lucky. It was a small part, just 2 scenes. But it got me into the Screen Actors Guild, and it was a week before he announced he had Parkinson's.
Wow.
We shot the pilot, and then he announced it. And I think, and nobody, none of us had any idea. And just, again, nicest guy in the world, Michael J. Fox. Like, he came up to me and said, "Hi, I'm Mike Fox." And I almost was like, "No, actually, you're Michael J. Fox. You're saying your name wrong. And you're very, very short."
You were Teen Wolf.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And then I sort of went through a similar thing where I was just like, I'm spread too thin. I'm going to auditions and doing stand-up at night. I'm taking screenwriting classes. I've got to pick something. And so I backed off stand-up. My agent retired. My acting agent retired. And I'm like, I'm just going to focus on screenwriting. And I banged out a bunch of high-concept features and, won some contests and film festival stuff with screenplays and got managers and stuff happened, and then it didn't happen, and all the typical horror stories. And I really wanted to just see something on a screen, and I wrote shorts. And then once I saw what directors did to comedy that I wrote, I was like, well, I can do better than that. And that's when I made Tickle Me Harder, the celebrity sex tape of Tickle Me Elmo.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna actually treat my audience real quick to. I don't know if we can play the whole thing, but
it's 4 minutes. It's a lot of Muppet porn.
Yeah, pretty much. But I definitely I've actually got this queued up for you guys, and I will warn everyone: keep the children away from the computer for like a minute or two. No, actually, they might learn something. So I'm actually going to show that to you guys right now. We'll be right back in a minute with more Joe Wilson of Vampire Mob. We're going to talk a little bit more about what he's doing right now, how he got everything together, and where Vampire Mob is going in the future. But first, a little Muppet porn. So stick around. Be right back.
Dr. Mardozo's Traveling Sideshow.
That's some hot stuff. That's some hot red on red action going on there.
It was me and 3 Tickle Me Elmos for 9 hours to shoot that. I did storyboard it, and I made that. I know it was the first thing I ever posted on YouTube, October '06, and
wow.
I saw those dolls on the news, and I'm like, they're doing some weird things.
Every time, there are so many. I was actually at a friend's house recently, and she has a kid, and the kid is teething, and there's this toy that it has for it that is clearly a dildo. And, and it's just like, I don't think that they really realize how, sexual and phallic most children's stuff is. And I don't know if they do that on purpose as, like, conditioning or whatever. I just actually finished watching a documentary called Programming the Nation that talked a lot about subliminal advertising and in both, commercials and in products and stuff like that. And now, of course, every time, now I'm seeing all these different things, and I'm inherently looking for it's basically, I'm looking for the dick. I'm just like, there's dick and tits in everything, and I need to see it. That's what it is.
That's hilarious. Yeah, when I saw the way those I'm like, if I put 2 of those together, that would be kind of funny, because there's no stop animation. That's exactly what they did. The only thing I did was wire them together, and I thought, well, 2 would be funny, but 3 is hilarious because it was 3. And so I'm like by myself, like shooting, and this is the reason I did this, was that I had a DX2000. And I bought it to make shorts, and I just never got to it. And I'm like, well, if I'm gonna start making shorts, I want to know what the hell I'm doing, and I'm not gonna have actors come in, so I'm gonna just make a porn. So I like to spend $100 on those sheets, and I'm outside shooting that Elmo on a ladder, outside this little bungalow in Hollywood. My neighbors are walking by, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, just making something. And so I posted that. Now, I had worked on a web series in 1999 for Mondo Media, the people that make Happy Tree Friends. They had a show called Like News, another animated show. And then I made that Tickle Me Elmo thing, which led to me kind of accidentally directing a web series for SuperDeluxe.com, which was Turner Entertainment. And it was produced by Scott Ackerman and B.J. Porter, who are the guys who do Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis.
Yep.
And I know
which
Zach
I think is genius.
Yeah, and I know Zach from stand-up. We were doing open mics in L.A. Like 13 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. So I know Zach from then, and it's funny to see like him. Well, of all the people that I knew, like he blew up like huge. Yeah. But those guys had a show, and then I ended up working on another web series. And Neil Patrick Harris did a guest spot on a web series called Power Loafing before he did Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along Blog, where he played a Canadian necrophiliac. And it's online. If you Google it, I think it's on Vimeo, but you can find it. And that's kind of like, that's where I found web series. And I ended up making a short called The Swear Police. You can see it at swearpolice.com, that won at the LA Comedy Shorts Film Festival. And I got to, I wanted to make another one. And that's when Vampire Mob, I was working as a private investigator in the intellectual property field and was investigating something that had to do with a couple of terms that were sort of mafia-ish. And Johnny Depp's movie was out. And I'm like, and it joked. I was actually talking to somebody who thought I was somebody else, and joked with them that, hey, the mafia thing seems to keep coming back, and the vampire stories don't seem to be going away. Where's the vampire mob thing? And I'm like, vampire mob? And I told John Colella about it, who's a very good friend of mine, very talented actor. And he was like, really? Really? Vampire and Mafia? Really? And I'm like, no, not like that. It's going to be different, and you'll see. So I wrote it as a play first at the Russell Group Theater, a little 10-minute play. And then I started cooking it, and I'm like, it would be much better as a web series because I could keep going. This is such a fun world. I can have a lot of characters and guest stars, and
Yep.
and we have 21 actors, including Emmy winner Marsha Wallace, who's Mrs. Krabappel on The Simpsons, Tony winner Ray Allen, who was Steve Buscemi's character's mom on The Sopranos. So it's so weird that we have Tony Soprano's aunt
On a mob show.
is Don's mom. Is actually the hitman's mom. She is not a vampire, and to watch her go head to head, we have Kirsten Banks Ness, who's on Criminal Minds, Retta, who plays Donna on Parks and Recreation, Andy Lauer, who's Emmy-nominated actor who was on Caroline in the City.
Now, is this a SAG production?
Yeah, it's a SAG show. It's SAG New Media,
SAG New Media, right.
so it's even more indie than SAG Indie.
I agree.
And we have Chris Mulkey, who's on Boardwalk Empire. He was on
Yep.
Twin Peaks. He was on Justified this season. And that's the thing is, like, I went from directing 3 Elmos to directing an Emmy winner, a Tony winner in the same scene. And I have no idea how I made any of this happen.
You're- And you know, it's really kind of, it must be a testament, obviously, to your ability to get your work seen. I mean, I think when I was looking at the Tickle Me Harder thing, I think it had like, and given it's an older video, but even that had 606,000 views on it.
Yeah, that Gawker picked that up, and they called it a celebrity sex tape worth our time. And I put it out the same time that Screech, Dustin Diamond, had his sex tape out.
Nice.
And so they were piggybacking on it, and that's what made it kind of really blow up. But yeah, it's and the thing is, like, it's just as silly, funny. Like, people start analyzing it, and I'm just like, it's just like, you know, when you took G.I. Joe and Barbie, you know, that's all it is.
Now, we do have a question from the audience. John Hoff actually asked, how is Vampire Mob different from, other vampire shows like True Blood and stuff like that are on TV? I mean, what's the edge, aside from the fact that it's kind of all mob related? It's, that Sopranos kind of feel. What are kind of the other differences? Is there anything special about your vampires? Please say they don't sparkle, please.
Yeah, I think first, I've never seen True Blood. I've never seen any of the vampire shows or any Twilight. I've never read any of it. The only research I did was Vampire for Dummies, no lie. The only thing I saw recently was, made a few years ago, was Let the Right One In, which I thought was just visually just an amazing movie.
Phenomenal flick.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the, like, I rarely go through a movie and I was pausing it on my laptop just to look at some frames of it. And, it's visually one of the few times I've looked up a cinematographer like that, where I'm like, what else has this guy done? So I think, and I really kind of, I look at the vampire elements as another obstacle on the characters. I don't look at them as vampires. I look at them as characters who have problems, and being a vampire is one of those problems.
So it's actually less about, the power trip of being a vampire and more of it actually being almost a handicap to them doing their job as a mobster.
Well, Don's a hitman, and his idea was to become a vampire because most of the time he's killing people at night, and he had got shot, and he saw the light at the end of the tunnel and the whole thing. So his idea was, well, if I become a vampire, then I'm kind of invincible a little bit, and he didn't, and he's based on one of the mob regulars that I had at the Sonesta Hotel. Was a guy who, like, he started to get hair plugs, and he gave up in the middle. So he just had this horrible, thing on the top of his head. So Don didn't think it through, and then he got hungry and bit his wife, and then he's got to deal with his wife, and then his wife didn't want her mom to die, so now she bit the mom, and now the mother-in-law's moving in, who's played by Marsha Wallace, who's never played a vampire before, and then that, that's one family, and then the whole mafia thing is another family that he has to deal with, and So we kind of, in the first season, we meet a lot of the characters. We meet his girlfriends. We meet his boss who gets out of jail. And then somebody shoots him. And that's when things start getting really interesting. So there's a complete arc from season 1 to season 2. There is a huge reveal at the end of season 2 about what is really going on.
And I want to remind everyone that if you guys want to watch, season 1 to kind of get prepared for season 2, you can go to their main website, vampiremob.com. You can also go ahead and go and to check out the Vampire Mob YouTube channel, which is probably youtube.com/vampiremob, I'm guessing.
That is it. That's the one. And
see,
I also have a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff on that, too.
Yeah, no, I saw you have blooper reels, you have some other scenes and stuff like that you guys have out there behind the scenes and all that. I've got let me see if I can get a pic up here of some of the ladies you've worked with here. Look at them. All right, nice stuff. And
that's Ray Allen on the left, Kirsten Banks-Ness, who's Penelope Garcia on Criminal Minds, and Marsha Wallace, who was on the Old Bob Newhart show, and also Mrs. Simpson. Mrs. Krabappel,
right?
And Marsha's just great, and Rainey Hall, who's actually married to John Colella in real life.
And how do you how did you get the your cast and crew? I mean, obviously you got a little bit of success doing the Tickle Me Harder stuff, and obviously you had some cachet in the stand-up world and some of the other things that you were put out there to do. How did you entice?
John Colella and I, we co-produced it together. I knew Marsha, John knew Ray, John knew Kirsten, we both knew Chris Mulkey. It really is like, I brought in some people, he brought in some people, and I think once people kind of saw the show, they read the script. We just shot with Vincent Guastafaro, who is like pals with David Mamet and is in all these Mamet movies, was in Sweet and Low Down, was telling me stories about working with Woody Allen, and it's just, and I don't work with a regular crew flow. We just have 3 cameras and a boom, and we have 3 operators on one of the operators, and that's it, always. Or we have 1 operator, it's just me, and in the car, like with the microphone just on a mic stand sitting on the floor.
So you keep it tight. You keep it relatively inexpensive, I'm guessing, and you get it out there. Now, obviously, we just saw it's on vampiremob.com. You can get it on YouTube as well. Now we were talking a little bit before the show. You can get it in other places as well if you're lucky enough to have like an Apple TV or a Boxy box.
Yeah, you can absolutely. If you have Apple TV or Boxy box, you can stream it on your TV. So it is genuinely indie TV.
Yeah, and we were having a little conversation about that too, about how people still, there's like almost a stigma to web television still that I think we're trying to shake off. And
I think the problem is that web television, the term, just the idea of it, it's like it's all entertainment and it's all online.
Right.
So if NBC's online and I'm online, we're both online, but they have a giant marketing infrastructure and we don't. That's the only difference.
It's the same kind of. It's the same thing about as saying like making a dichotomy between being an independent filmmaker and a filmmaker. At the end of the day, you're both doing the same thing. One just has a budget, one doesn't.
That is it. And the thing is, like, when you look at an hour drama on a network and an hour drama that's on a USA or a TNT, they're both hour dramas, but they both have completely different sized audiences, completely different sized ad rates, and they still put out 45 minutes of entertainment, 43, whatever it is with commercials.
Right. And the good news is that, depending on how you're shooting your series, if you are doing an hour drama or whatever on the web, depending on how you roll it, you can actually have a full hour. You don't necessarily have to have that 20-minute break of commercials, which is, depending on how you structure your show, because you can always have, overlays on the, while it's playing. You can get advertising that way, or obviously there's things like product placement and stuff like that are in there, which I think is something that, again, we were kind of talking about a little bit, where it seems like independent content producers for the web seem to be trying to flock more towards the older school of doing stuff, because and it's the same reason why I believe that independent filmmakers are always like, oh, we we have to have my movie. I have to have my movie in a theater, and because it's a validation type of thing. But I think that some of the people who are more forward thinking, like Joe here, are understand that you don't have to be in a theater, you don't have to be on television, you don't have to go for the big the big nut sellout. You can go and you can make something by being audience centric and being keeping things tight, keeping budgets low, and showing your audience that you're having a good time doing what you're doing and making engaging content, focusing on the story versus than focusing on selling the story.
Absolutely, and also that I think an audience can sense that this is not a story that is coming through a machine. And I'm not saying that a publicly traded corporation can't produce quality entertainment.
Sure.
But there's a machine that it has to go through, and a lot of times that's what fucks it up. And because everybody knows when they're talking to me on Twitter, I write the show, I direct the show, I produce the show, I edit the show, I do the sound mixing, the color correcting. I'm not a company. I'm just a guy.
Yep.
And that's what kind of changes the. John Clell and I are friends. Our wives are friends. This is not the normal way of doing things. And I think the problem with a lot of the web series people is that they think that the world needs to know about web series, and they keep talking about support web series, everybody. And it's just like, that's like saying watch television. That's like read books. I like stories about specific things. You have a story about, how about this? Tell me an interesting story that I would be interested in watching.
Yeah.
How about that? It doesn't matter what form it's in. Audiences don't care that it's a web series.
Yep.
They care about the characters and the story. That's what that's why we watch movies or television shows. All these web series people who keep talking about trying to champion the form of web series have their heads up their asses because people don't think like that.
Yep.
It's the future, assholes. Wake up.
I think part of it.
Telling stories.
Yeah, no, and part of it, from a consumer basis, an audience basis is where can I see it? I mean, where TVs have things like Netflix and even Twitter and social networks and stuff like that built into them now, where you can view things from whether it's Vudu or from Boxy or a number of other distribution sources. You can watch web television and you can consume it on an actual television, and so the barrier of I have to have a computer and an internet connection to watch this stuff is starting to get a little bit more blurred. So you can go and watch a shitty sitcom. You have obviously the choice, but at the same time you also have the opportunity to watch an innovative web series as well, and you can consume them both from the same seat.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that the other part of this is that I didn't write. I mean, Vampire Mob obviously has some genre mashing up going on, but I didn't write a show for a demographic. I didn't write a show. I wrote a show that has profanity in it because that makes sense.
Yep.
And that is going to turn off sponsors, and I don't give a fuck. I didn't. Then I'm what everyone say frack. Come on. That's stupid. That doesn't work. This is what makes this authentic to me, is because we're really doing this. That's John's kitchen. Don's kitchen is John's kitchen. We're using the tools available. Shiloh the dog, that's John and Ramey's dog.
Yep.
So yeah, I really think that it's possible to tell a good story independently, because I've had offers from companies that had an interest in Vampire Mob for various things, and I started, and they wanted notes, they wanted me to shoot establishing shots, they wanted me to do a lot of things that I didn't want to do, and I didn't want to give up control, because if somebody wants to show up and say, hi, we'd like to make this a TV show, I get fired, John gets recast, and the whole thing gets fucked.
Yep.
That's what's going to happen.
Now, speaking of people saying, hey, I want to make this a TV show, we did get a question from the audience, and something we were actually talking about a little earlier, which First Glance Film, our buddy Bill Ostroff, and the purveyor of contest goodies for tonight's show, and most shows leading up to the First Glance Film Festival in October, he actually asked, what do you think about, it was the question about Dick Clark Productions buying the Streamies? Yeah,
it can't be bad, I guess, potentially, for more people to know it. I mean, they're developing a show, so they don't have a network. Most likely it's going to end up on buried in basic cable. But, if it helps bring more people to stories, I'm all for it. I honestly, I think the best thing that happened to web series this year was that there was no streaming awards, that there was no award show period, and because I think what it's making people realize is that nothing is happening. A lot of tiny little things are happening, but there is a tsunami of content headed toward the internet right now, and there are going to be way too many shows, and everybody thinks that they're just going to make a show, and an audience is going to watch it, and some network's going to show up, and they're going to get an agent, and everything's going to blow up, and it's like, hey, dude, how about this? This is the first time in the history of storytelling that you've been given this much freedom with this much quality and this much distribution.
Yep.
So if you want to go give that up to some sponsor, some company that's going to tell you what to do and chase awards and all the rest of it, good for you. Enjoy your life. I'm going to go tell a story like I want to tell it to an audience because now I can.
Yep.
We're shooting with 5Ds and 7Ds. I saw this. Our trailer was projected at the Egyptian, at the American Cinematheque. I did a panel there, and they projected the season 2 trailer.
Yep.
Fucking looks amazing.
Well, yeah, because the technology's caught up to to the budget of people that do what we do, and we're able to create quality content as long as the story and the actors and the characters and stuff are interesting to the audience. You can make it. It's nothing to throw something up on a screen now in 1080p or projected to get something that looks really good. It's funny. I mean, to shoot something in high def is one thing. To composite something that is worth seeing in high def is something completely different. And kind of going along with what you're saying, in terms of like the streamies and stuff like that, one of the only things, I mean, there's a small list, but one of the only things I also didn't like about the streamies was it seemed like there was a lot of pageantry, and going into it, you knew who was going to win, because there's only a handful of maybe 15 to 20 shows, and all of them basically were nominated for various categories that you knew were going to win, because it's like the Guild, Goodnight Burbank, maybe, there's just like there's maybe 15 to 20 shows that are all they're the winners. And the funny part is all of them are either have distribution through a network of sorts online, like a cold cast or something like that, or have sponsors or distribution through deals through things like Microsoft or MSN networks or whatever. I found that to be really interesting.
Yeah, I honestly, I think the thing is that if we as storytellers are going to create these independent shows, and we are then going to go and look for dad to buy it, we're always going to be employees. We're never going to have our own deal. And for what it takes to make these shows, I mean, granted, I put a lot more into my show personally than a lot of people do, because I'm trying to build just the show. Because I think that it's possible to get something big enough, because our audience donated the money. Like, we tried to raise money on Kickstarter, we got to 6,000 out of 10, we lost everything.
Ugh.
We started up again, and we raised 10,000. We had to stop production in the middle because we ran out of money. But we finally got it done, made it. We shot 80 pages with 21 actors, with nothing, with homemade rigs for the digital SLRs, and our monitors are supposed to be screens for a minivan. But we made it. It's done. It's in the can. I'm cutting it. Doesn't look bad.
And there's something to be said for that kind of innovative or creative spirit, and that's one of the reasons why I really like working with, I say, independent filmmakers, but really it's independent content creators of all sorts. And I've had other people from the web series world on the show before, and really, with the exception of the intended distribution plan, whereas, independent filmmakers tend to want to go more theatrical or do the film festival route and stuff like that, versus the, direct-to-consumer type of method of web series producers. It's the same thing. It's the same type of production. It might be cut set differently to, more, actually modeled episodically. But if you take something like The Bannon Way, which, was a feature that Sony cut up, it's the same thing. I love that. That is one of the lost shows that I wish I had to show you guys. We had Mark Gant and oh god, I can't remember his name, Jesse Warren. Jesse Warren on the show about a year and change ago, and the person who shall remain nameless that worked for me that I fired, that you and I kind of alluded to you earlier, he forgot to hit the record button.
Oh my God!
Same thing happened with our episode of Hayden Black.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, you can imagine the Nick was not pleased.
Yeah, Mark was Mark's a really nice guy. He's very supportive. He retweeted us, and I met him at a screening actually at the Egyptian. It's so weird that the way, like, I'm the new guy with the show, and I go to the Egyptian to it was a 2-filter screening thing, and the Sony lawyers wouldn't let him show The Bannon Way.
Yep.
And I walked up and I said, "Hey, I'm Joe Wilson from Vampire." And I was like, "Oh, you remember talking?" I said, I was bummed out. I said, "I'd only seen parts of it before they took it down." And Mark handed me a DVD. He's like, here's the DVD. And I sat down and watched the whole thing.
Nice.
Like a movie. But, yeah, I mean, but the thing about it is, like, yeah, I don't, because you give it to a company, the company is going to go do what they are going to do with it, and then it's not yours anymore. You don't own it. And that was, even with the couple of companies that we've had chats with, and I've had meetings with a couple of websites, I was just like, you know what, after working for SuperDeluxe.com, like, Manda Media rocked. I would work for them in a heartbeat. SuperDeluxe.com, it was like, Turner was falling apart. They were running out of money. We had a show done. We had to wait 5 months for them to put it up. It sucked.
Yeah.
Paid really well, but it sucked. And I'm just like, I don't want to be in that position anymore. I'm so sick of just having the entertainment industry slap me around because they think they know what's best. And it's like, you know what, how about this time, I'm not going that route. I'm not going the festival route. I'm not going we're going to be on the internet. That's what it's for. That's what this show is made for. Yep. We're going to find our audience. We're going to raise our money, and whatever happens, happens. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this won't work, but I'm going to put everything I have into it to try to get this thing to blow up as big as I can.
And I think it's funny because I get very similar. I get a lot of advice from people, myself, of just for FilmSnobbery, saying like, you should, maybe try looking at this or working with such and such a person or whatever and this and that. And I'm like, yeah. And then there's even the dilemma of, if I don't make enough money to cover things like, rent, do I go ahead and do I get another job to sustain this? And it's just like, no, I came to a very important decision recently, as a matter of fact, where I said, no, I'm better served doing this and doing this as best I can to get it to a point where the show and the site and I can pay for myself and do what we need to do and grow. Without the working for other people or without whether it's within the industry or not. It's tough doing these web things because it's such a scattered market too. It really is. I mean, what I try to do to even do this, and I've talked about this on the show before, is I've tried very hard to get people to not necessarily even sponsor us with money, but there are things that we need for the show that we can't get because they are too expensive, and even if we raised money, it's not, that money could be used for other things. I mean, like for Wirecast, we use for our broadcasting system. It's a $600 piece of software that they were like, here, you can have it. And I asked, same thing with Sony Vegas, which we use to edit all our shows. When we do, interviews and stuff like that, we do all our post-production, we do it in Sony Vegas. And Sony has had no qualms. I got to give them huge props for a second. They've had no qualms over the past 3 years just being like, here are thousands of dollars worth of software, just multiple copies of Vegas to either give away or to just stash for us and stuff like that. And it's not even so much that they're lending us their software to pimp out what they do to help them out, but just having their name attached helps us. It's like people say, who do you work with? I work with Sony. I don't have, for stuff like people like us. I mean, I'm out in Massachusetts, so I don't have the luxury of going to all the swanky parties and going and really meeting people on the level that you can on a daily basis in New York or LA, although that may change in the near future. I'm trying to relocate to New York. But it's really difficult, and relying on people who can help you out in that regard, not necessarily always monetarily, but even helping out with product or services to help you out is always good. Joe, do you kind of have any insight into anything that you've done with Vampire Mob to get help in that kind of regard?
What's funny is that, I live in Los Angeles, and I don't go to any swanky parties. And John Colella and I were neighbors, and that's kind of how we got to know each other, and I saw him in a play, he saw me do a one-man show, and then he was on a podcast I used to do that was actually where Tickle Me Elmo kind of came from. And then it really turned into, he knew Ray Allen because he did Cyrano, and she directed it, and so it really wasn't a swanky party thing. It was really more kind of mafia. It was more like, who do you know? Oh, yeah? Well, all right. You get that favor. I'll get this favor. I'll ask them. And it turned more into that. So it really wasn't I am not, and maybe that's part of the reason, I cannot tolerate bullshit.
Yeah.
And when I try to tolerate bullshit, because I did it as a screenwriter, I'm just like, no, that's a great idea. We should have Mother Earth and Father Time playing ping pong in heaven. No lie, that was a note. No fucking lie. That was a note. I was writing a screenplay for this fucking guy, and he had sold something. It was like a $2 million, spec sale, and he was like, you're really talented. Let's work on this thing together. And I'm just like, so now it's just like, you know what? Nope, I run Vampire Mob like I'm in fucking Boston or the middle of the country or wherever. It doesn't matter. What I get access to are the level of talent that I have, but there is nothing else. I am not a fucking mover and shaker. I'm just on Twitter all the time.
Yeah, no, and at the end of the day, it's working within your ability and working within your creative means. I mean, that's another part of doing this job that amazes me on a daily basis is the level of creativity from the people that we talk to, like yourself and the people that we see on Indiegogo or other places. It's really great. I want to go ahead and I want to just throw another shout out again. If you want to see Vampire Mob out there, folks, you can go ahead to www.vampiremob.com. You can also go check them out on YouTube, youtube.com/vampiremob. You can also go follow Joe on Twitter, two different places. Obviously, you want to follow the official Vampire Mob account, twitter.com/vampiremob and /Joe Wilson TV. Make sure you had the TV in there because I forgot that earlier, and because I'm an idiot.
Joe Wilson, damn him. I think the other thing about it is if you have fun doing FilmSnobbery Live and running the site, I have a lot of fun making the show. I work my ass off. This is 7 days a week, all the fucking time. But this is fun. All the actors who worked on my show had fun. They all told me afterwards how much fun it was.
Yep.
And I think that's what comes across, and that's what's different about this. This is like doing a play with cameras.
Yep. And you know what? I do. I have a lot of fun doing what I do. The only problem that I run into is if I want to help people on the level that I want to, and if I want to sustain this and grow it, the only problem is I very much have to treat it as a business, and that part isn't as fun.
No,
but
I agree.
but at the same time, the only way I know that, if I'm going to get to a point where I can start just handing money out to people, which is something I want to do. I want to have a nonprofit arm that just basically gets money to give to people. So Vampire Mob, is shooting season 10, and they're like, we're a couple of grand short. FilmSnobbery has an application process to just go, you need money, here we go.
It's a great idea, and the thing is, it doesn't take a lot to make the show at this level, but no one gets paid. Everybody, we had Melissa Street and Kathy Singh were our makeup artists. They volunteered. All our crew volunteered. All the cast volunteered. All the we shot without permits all over LA. Somebody gave us a castle. Somebody gave us a Bentley. But everything else was just using what we had. The only thing we didn't have that we really had to track down was this butcher shop scene, and we ended up getting a free location that was perfect. So it's just the amount of luck that I've had making this show is why I keep going.
And kind of going along the lines with that too is, even those people who are volunteering, especially the level of cast that you're working with, you look at the people who are helping out, whether it's doing makeup or in your case even, directing, producing, writing, the whole 9 yards. These people are going to go back to, jobs at paying jobs at these various TV shows or movies and stuff like that. And the next time that someone says, I need a makeup artist, do you know anybody? Word like that gets around, like, especially if that makeup artist does a really good job on that actress or actor, that actor or actress is going to remember that, that person made me look good, so that's the person I want working on me.
And the thing is, like, Melissa Street and Kathy Singer, they're such a blast to have on set. They're so much fun. Like, they're pros. Like, they work on commercials and Playboy shoots and all kinds of stuff. And for them to work on our show, because they're not local, like, they drove in to help us out, just huge. And they did, blood work and wounds, and on top of just making everybody look fantastic. And again, we shot 80 pages. That's a lot of...
That's a feature.
A lot of stuff. Yeah, it is really close to a feature. Yeah, the whole thing will run way over. And we worked with fight choreographers for the end of the scene, Jan Bryant, Dan Speaker, who had done Master and Commander and Hook, and they do TV shows. They did our fight choreography, and we got to know them through them doing the fight choreography for Cyrano de Bergerac, that John does the big, sword fight poetry scene with the nose, which I actually shot on my 5D. If you look at the Vampire Mob YouTube channel, it's up there. He's an amazing actor, John Colella. Like, for him to just do this kind of like, hitman character, I mean, he brings a lot to it that it doesn't turn into a caricature at all. But his range is amazing.
Awesome. And now I got to ask, because I've kept you on for far longer than we normally go, and I'm completely cool with that, because I'm having a lot of fun, and you're a really interesting source of info, and I love the story that you have overall. I want to know, though, what are you doing next?
I've got a ton of posts left on Vampire Mob. I'm shooting a music video with Mindy Hebert, who plays the opening saxophone before every episode. We're doing a real guerrilla music video. Kathy Singh's our makeup artist, so already we're kind of like, hey, do you want to work on another crazy project? And she's like, yeah. And Mindy and I just go out on Sunset Strip, just the two of us, and I have a cage on the camera, no monitor, we've made some great images. She's such a blast to work with. And then I really, I want to do a season 3, but I've said no to paying work, and I got to go make some money. So I either have to figure out some way to make a tiny little bit of money to cover the rent, essentially, so I can keep working on this, because I've just burned off a lot of personal capital to keep this project going.
Yeah,
beyond what the audience has.
I know the feeling.
It's just the only way we could do this.
Yeah, no, and I know the feeling, and I love that your audience is being so supportive of what you're doing, and I love that it's really great, and I think it's very key to be able to have audience support like that, and have those evangelists who when they see you're in a bind, next thing you know, you've got a PayPal payment sitting in your inbox, and
our audience is just. I put the word out that we ran out of money twice, and they show up every time they retweet the show, and like our views, we don't have 1 billion views, but man, our audience just, I talk to people all over the world every single day on Twitter, and they really have, because I work by myself most of the time. I'm writing it, I'm doing post-production. It's only when I'm shooting them with human beings. The rest of the time, I'm on Twitter. I'm just, my life is in front of computer monitors, and I love it. I love doing posts. It's a nightmare because it's 3 cameras. We got to do all the sync. It's all 7D and 5D.
Yep.
We shot with matching lenses, but man, it's a ton of work. But I love every part of this, because there is nobody. There's no team. There's no post-production team. There's no pre-production team. I had a DP for 1 day. So yeah, we just kind of like Home Depot work life. That whole opening scene in season 2 of season 1 of episode 1 of season 2. That's Home Depot life.
It's funny. It's funny. You when you sent me the picture of them, I don't have it queued up here, but I actually, you guys can't tell off camera, but I actually have those same lights, 2 light banks of them for the green screen. But I actually don't have them on right now. The good news is that the green screen's working with just one. I think it's a.
Yeah, look great.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, well, it's only because I had a 3. Well, it's brand new in terms of the virtual set.
I've seen the other setup before.
Yeah, and that was absolute dog shit. I laugh. We shoot in a garage, and I love the other set because of the stuff that people sent in, and it was very garage bandy. But at the end of the day, yeah, I did have to make the decision of, okay, well, now we're on, in HD in platforms like TiVo and we are on Boxy and Apple TV and all these other kind of ancillary things. How do I want to package this show? And it's bad enough that I'm the face of it because I have a face for radio, as I've said before. And so, it's just, I wanted to do something that was a little bit more dynamic, especially because it is just me. We have Jerry, but Jerry's not here with me until I make a Muppet of him.
Right. Well,
so,
the same thing as us. The first season we shot standard definition with 10-year-old video cameras.
Yep.
Those are, VX2000 is like 1999. So then when we got to, when I knew that we wanted to do season 2, I looked at like the Zacuto shootout, and I absolutely believe the entire digital SLR Kool-Aid I'm in. But I don't have any Zacuto gear. I have a cage my father made from a plan on cheesycam.com. But I think that those cameras, what you can do with them, it changes everything. I'm just like, I shot with Canons when I was doing, photojournalism, so it's so weird to hold a 5D and know that I'm shooting video that's 1080p. It's just ridiculous, but it's the same thing. I wanted to upgrade. I wanted to be like, okay, well, if this is the future, if people can really stream this, then let's have this just dark fucking noir. Let's use these goddamn cameras. I'm going to write a story that matches this, and let's just go fucking do it. And if you look at the background of all the cars that are parked during that opening scene of season 2, it's so the cops can't see us.
That's awesome.
We had no permit, and those guns, I don't have permits for those 45s. They're not operational, but everything about them is operational except for the barrel. But I'm technically not supposed to have used them like that. So we had somebody who was literally, my wife actually was the cop lookout. That's a credit.
Nice.
And pizza was the code word, which is a problem when the pizza gets delivered. But we had 2 pizzas, and they were just slowing down to look. But I stood where we were shooting and directed a cast and crew to park their cars in the parking lot. So yeah, if you look in the background, you'll notice that the cars are parked a little weird. That's why.
Nice. My code word for that would have been like bacon, and then for pizza it would have been hot sausage. I don't know why, but we did have a not less of a question, more of a comment from our buddy here, Bill Ostroff at First Glance Film, the First Glance Film Festival. He said that Vampire Mob should play at their Vegas Horror Fest.
I'll take a look at it.
Yes, he'll take a look at it. So, I want to. Unfortunately we got way more show to get to. But I want to definitely talk to you more off the air, and we'll reconvene because I think we both have some. I know you definitely have some interesting stories to tell. Hopefully, some of the shit that comes out of my mouth is at least tolerable for you.
Yeah,
and
absolutely, and anytime, I'd love to come back anytime.
I would love to have you. Honestly, this is one of those things that really angers me about not being in a more accessible location where I couldn't have you in the studio and just do like 10 hours of this and just cut it over time, or you know what I mean. It's upsetting.
The great thing about it is that we can do this now like this at any time, and that is what I love about all of it.
That is true. That is absolutely true. And we have been known for, and Jerry can attest, and so can everyone else here in the audience, we are known for doing our like 8 to 10 hour shows just out of the blue on like a Sunday morning at 4 a.m. Like it's just like, Nick's bored, let's go online.
Actually, I did an interview on Black Sky Radio, and we went 3 hours straight.
Yep. Yeah, it's easy to do, and especially when you got engaging personalities like yourself. And yet another thing we were talking about, off the air, was we were talking about Kevin Smith and how we both, to a point agree. Like, even if he's not the best filmmaker in the world, the guy is still has an audience, and the reason why is because he's such a dynamic personality, and that is the example I've given again and again to filmmakers, that you have to be the showman or showwoman, because chances are your first outing as a filmmaker, especially at a low budget level, is not going to be great. And
also just in terms of mindset, I mean, I don't know. There's a victimology in the film festival model, and I understand, I like the LA Comedy Shorts Film Festival. I loved it. The award show was amazing. It was like they showed my short right after I made my awards acceptance speech, and there's Mark Hamill's in the room, Lorraine Newman's in the room. It was a blast, absolute blast. Like, name of my short on the trophy. Those guys could not have been any nicer. But I also think that, just being on the internet and doing things and talking to the audience, because this idea of, because I know a couple of filmmakers that I've spoken to, they're like, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And I'm like, well, then you are always going to be an employee. You are never going to have your own audience that you talk to who likes what you do. You are always going to be an employee of the company.
I come from an IT background, so I used to be a network engineer, and so basically means I worked with a lot of socially inept nerds. And the funny part is that the socially inept nerd, technical nerd, is almost exactly the same type of socially inept as an artist, just very socially awkward, and they don't know how to promote themselves because it's all about the art. They're so in their own head of what they're doing, and they feel that they put their emotion and their feelings on the screen or on the film versus in person. And I look at them and I'm just like, look, you can hate Kevin Smith all you want, but go turn on Smodcast for fucking an hour and you tell me that that guy isn't going to continue being successful because of just how he relates to his audience, and that's a lot of what it is. It's just being able to be engaging, tell interesting stories, and the guy's got fun stories. I mean, even if it's just talking about fucking his wife, I mean, come on, it's funny.
And he was he's and continues to be kind of ahead of the curve in a way, and much like Ed Burns, and Ed Burns and Ed Burns satisfies his filmmaker need of getting a projection by going to a film festival and just here, boom, audience, I see them do it, done. And his statement, which is absolutely true, most of us don't see movies on screen. Most of us see them on our laptops or TVs or whatever. That is the way most people do it. So why put all that extra marketing budget? Why put all that print budget? Why not just go right to, because my thinking is that even, with Vampire Mob, if our audience gets big enough that no matter what, a sponsor wants access to it. And if the sponsor is like, sponsored by, and they're not going to give any notes, they don't have any fucking influence on the show whatsoever, they just want their name attached to it, I'm down with that. That'd be great. If they want to tell me one fucking thing about the story, then we're done. Sorry, I didn't get it to this or that. It's not worth, I put way too much into this to screw this up. I'd rather walk away, lose everything, because this is not a profit venture. It's not going to be a profit venture. It's going to be it's like a band that we made an album, we got some great songs, but we're still local, nobody knows about us, we don't have a major label, and we're just trying to build. Yep,
absolutely. No, and the funny part is, I mean, if you did get, any type of profit in there, that's when the SAG indie stuff starts kicking in, or SAG new media stuff starts kicking in, then you do have to start paying people, and
which is great. And the thing is, I'm a member of SAG, so and the great thing would be, how great would it be to work on a project with your friends
that you all get paid on,
and we all get paid on it, and we made it. It's our thing. That would be the shit. I mean, that is what I want all of us to do, because I work with people who are so fucking talented, who John Colella and Rainey Hall and all this cast, like, these guys should be working and on television all the time. Millions of people should watch these guys work. It is unbelievable the amount of talent that I get to work with. And it just, it would be so great to, like, sidestep all the bullshit, go right to the audience, blow the thing up, have them go, yes, I get it. I like what this is doing. I like this story. I'm in. This seems fair to me. I'll buy a T-shirt.
And we have
story.
Let's take one more question from the audience, only because it's her first time on the show, watching the show, and so I want to welcome a new guest here, Miss Childress, and she asks, how much of a following do you need for a web TV series before it's ready to be pitched?
I don't. I'm going to be as nice about this as possible. I don't give a fuck. Honestly, I could give a shit. I have no fucking idea. I don't pitch to anybody. I'm not an employee. I make a story. Pitching is when I take an idea or I take something and I go, look, here's this. I'm not interested in, like, we raised $10,000. If you look at our views, it doesn't match.
Yep.
We can never make that in advertising dollars, and our audience isn't big enough for me to walk around town begging for some kind of marketing company or whatever to give us money, because we don't make something that is friendly to products.
Right.
We don't. This is about a criminal who swears and kills people.
Yeah.
That is not sponsor friendly. So
No,
there are, and all these kind of rules about how long a web series should be, and how do you do this, and how do you do that. How about this? There are no rules, everybody. There are no rules.
Right. No, the rules.
I'm saying this to Miss Childress. Like, don't get all caught up in that. Like, when's the right time? Like, this is just like, this is punk rock shit. Just plug a fucking guitar in and figure it out.
Yep. Absolutely. No,
tell your story and do not try to, don't build a story on fucking demographics, don't build a story on product integration, don't try to figure out the magic puzzle that makes people fucking think you're a magician and a genius and it's going to throw millions of dollars at you. It's not going to fucking happen. Find the good story to tell that you love, that you're going to go to the fucking mat to tell. Because when you're done and it's over and nothing happens, you at least did that. You can look at that 5 years from now, 10 years from now and go, that fucking rocks. I'm glad I made that. I made that on my terms, with no bullshit, nobody in my fucking way, because for the first time in history, I can. Stop being a bitch to all this fucking corporate bullshit. Grab the reins and just go out, figure out how to do it. Develop your story, have table reads, get notes. Don't write something a weekend and put it out. And please stop telling stories about people who want to be actors. Who gives a fuck about the entertainment industry? I'm so fucking sick of it. No more roommates. No more I'm pursuing acting. Tell real fucking stories about real fucking characters.
And when you're watching the fruits of your labor from your cardboard box on Hollywood Boulevard.
I think you can do both.
I think you can too. I think that, if like yourself, if you have a passion for what you do and you get other people to gravitate to that, you will be successful by default. It'll eventually happen, and you won't have the need to pitch to people. You won't have the need, because those people, first of all, will approach you eventually, and then not only that, you'll.
But the thing about it is, like, if Miss Childress has a story, and an audience will like that story, then they will support that story. And if she puts the time in to continue to work to build that audience, she doesn't need to pitch to fucking anybody. Other than the actors, I have to pitch to actors. I have to show them good scripts. I still have to do good work. I'm working with fucking professional people who are working on TV shows and movies. I'm just some guy with a couple of cameras. So when I hand them a script, it's got to be the real fucking deal, because I'm dealing with the real fucking deal. These are Tony winners and Emmy winners. I'm not some schmuck who's banging out 3 pages going, woohoo, I'm making a web series. Now it's going to be a TV show, and Gum's going to sponsor it.
Yes, you see, you're a completely different kind of schmuck, and I appreciate that. No.
Exactly.
Loving it. To answer a question from the audience, a little technical question. Yes, I can just change and manipulate all the backgrounds and stuff like that. Someone actually in the audience said, hey, when we get like heated rants and passionate people on like that, we should have a special background that we put up for that. And I was just like, I completely agree. If I could do it live right now, like if I knew exactly where the file I want to use is, I'd totally do it. I have another one I want to use.
Coming from the bottom of the desk.
Exactly. Just fire. No, I love it. This is, speaking with people like you is one of the reasons why I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and it's also people who, you kind of get it, and I like that. And you have a different take on stuff too that most people do. It's really kind of it's interesting to see your perspective on different things because you're in the thick of it in terms of location, so you see that industry every day.
Like I'm not, but I'm so not in the thick of it in terms. Like I don't agree with the majority of the web series world. I'm sorry, I don't. The old model thinking of like going to sponsors and trying to pitch to like, should I pitch to brand managers or to marketing managers? Really? Is that what you dreamed about when you were a kid, asshole? Really? Is that what you dreamed about?
No, I see. For me, I would have been way too like interested in being like, I have Mark Hamill in the room. I gotta ask him if he could just say for me either one or two things, either something in the Joker voice, or I want to go to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. One or the other. No. I mean, that's more my mentality of doing stuff. Now, obviously, you know, when I do, yes, I do try to package it for something that can be quote unquote sold, you know, in terms of, you know, when Jerry says to me like, we should just do like a 4-hour show. People love when you do that. I'm like, Jerry, that's great. And I love doing it too, but I can't sell that in terms of even putting it on, other distribution outlets and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes, you know, people don't want to watch my show for 4 hours in a syndicated aspect. But, you know, that's one of the reasons why we want to come up with something. We're doing another show launching soon called FilmSnobbery Daily. Real quick, real dirty, 5 minutes or less, some indie news, throw it out every day, Monday through Friday. That's the idea. Real easy. And the idea being that, you know, I can sell a 5-minute show. I can sell that. And when I say that, you know, that's the business side of me talking, saying, I know that I can get, whether it's sponsors or whether it's money or even, you know, build my audience further by adding new content. Because at the end of the day, and I think you have it, you said it in a different way, that, and it's been said in the past, content is king. And I don't give a shit what anyone tells you. It's not who's sponsored it. Yes, there are shows out there, web shows out there that lend themselves to product sponsorships and stuff. Like you have a show like The Guild that is based around World of Warcraft. Yes, that is a show that's built for, it has a built-in audience and it has a built-in outlet for mass marketing. Shows like Vampire Mob can capitalize on things like either the vampire culture or the mobster culture, but you know there's no product involved in there that's going to, you know, you can actively pimp, you know.
No, but even I just watched Mark Gant in the finale of Leap Year TV, which is a sponsored show, and it's about entrepreneurs, and that's the whatever their sponsor is, that is kind of that is their audience is entrepreneurs. So, but all it is in terms of product placement is the little sponsorship up front, and then the story is about entrepreneurs doing this kind of contest thing, and there's a point to it, and you can see why it would appeal to their audience. That really makes sense, I think, in that sense. So, but I think for the indie people, and that's what I'm watching is a lot of web series people seem to, like when I did this panel at the Egyptian, Ileana Douglas was on it, and somebody from Strike TV, somebody from Funny or Die, and the creator of Asylum, another web series that got picked up by BET Digital, and all the questions about money and pitching and product placement, and nothing is about nothing is about anything other than that. And what it is that it just, you know, and I get it, everybody wants to make money, I understand that. I like to make money too, but I don't, for the independent creator that just puts a show out, like you have to understand, no one cares.
Yeah. There's a million other things they can watch. I mean...
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I completely understand.
So you've got to put the time in.
No, absolutely. And over time, your focus can shift. And again, I'm going back to Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is a perfect example of that. I mean, he's been doing Smodcast for, I think it was 4 years before he launched the Smodcast Internet Radio, and he just added and added and added. Now what he does is he does a couple of live shows a day, you know, for various shows that he does, and then the rest of the day they play archives, which is basically repurposing all these different shows they've had, including, you know, different...
He's got a talk show in development now.
Yeah, no kidding, right? With was it TMC, AMC? It was I can't remember who the network was, but yeah, no, he talked about that too. And actually, he has two shows because the other one is a reality show for the guys from Tell 'Em Steve Dave, Walt Flanagan and Brian Johnson. It was a reality TV show set in the comic shop out in New Jersey. And you know, it's just, and that's the other thing too.
Yeah,
I mean, even doing
those guys filled in when him and when they went to Comic-Con.
Exactly.
Doing like 4 hours live.
And that's the whole. I think a lot of the point of that too is
and Jay Moore.
Jay Moore. Oh, I love his show. That guy.
I like his show more than his stand-up.
I agree. And you know why? Because even when he talks about it and his passion for stand-up comedy and all that kind of stuff, I don't know why. It evokes a very emotional response in me. From a guy who's been to, on Saturday Night Live and has done movies and done all these other things, and at the same time still manages to be engaging but humble at the same time. I was really kind of, because especially the characters they play, he usually plays kind of an asshole, and to hear him kind of not be that guy, was really endearing to me. And the thing is, I mean, it's just for guys like you and guys like me. These shows and building this content is one thing, and what that will do is that will lead to other stuff that will pay. I mean, we might not make anything with our passion projects, like whether it's Vampire Mob or Film Snobbery or anything else. But Film Snobbery has allowed me to go and speak at film festivals and speak at conferences and events, and eventually things like that will also pay, and they do. I mean, and yourself as well. You're on panels and stuff too, and eventually you become recognized as an expert in that side of the industry, and you'll
I'm
be
actually a judge in the Burbank Film Festival.
See, there you go. So I mean,
I got asked to do that because of Vampire Mob.
Exactly. So I mean, it's just that one thing leads to another, no matter what you do, and what this is going to lead to right now is the next part of our show. So Joe, what I want to do is I want to talk to you endlessly off camera. We'll talk more and be hopefully just as candid, if not more so, when I chat with you later. I just want to finish up for tonight for everyone and that's watching now. And what we'll do is we'll have you on again. It's definitely going to happen.
No, this is great.
That's going to happen. So
great to find some like-minded individuals out on the internet.
Look, throw a rock and you're going to hit some asshole on the internet like me.
Trust me, I've met a small wave of human beings who don't agree with my. I actually was asked at an IWTV producers meeting if my show was a hobby. and I just looked at the woman and I'm like, really, with an Emmy winner and a Tony winner, yeah, make it a hobby.
Yeah. And that goes right back to there was that article on IndieWire, I think. It was either IndieWire or Variety or something like that about filmmaking as a hobby. And part of it, there were two articles. There was one that was specifically for documentarians about it had to do with tax status in terms of is filmmaking a hobby or not when it comes to documentaries. But there was another article that was out literally about is filmmaking just a hobby or not. And I can't remember where specifically the source, but I'm sure enough internet research and Googling will get that out there. But
I think that there's. I mean, I'm not a calling card guy, and I'm not. And I used to be a goal guy. I used to be, I'm going to do this, and then this is happening, this is happening, this is going to happen. And now I'm just like, I'm a guy who does shit, and then the other shit happens, and that's my career now. Because I never wanted to be a director. I never wanted, none of my goals were what I'm doing now, and I'm doing them because I wanted to just tell a story, and I think that's the thing that I didn't want to direct. It was just I watched other people fuck up my shit.
Yep.
Like I give you comics, you fuck it up. I'm gonna learn how to direct. Sorry.
Yep. No, and you know what? That's exactly how I've grown. What I've done to the point where I know exactly what I want now, and I don't have patience for people who either A, drag their feet, or B, do it wrong. It's just like, look, if you can't do it, I understand, but just move the fuck out of my way, and I'll do it myself. And
and the thing is, but if they're doing it wrong, and I've seen some stuff where it's like some web series stuff where it's like they don't know anything about room tone, they have no visual sense whatsoever, nothing's composed right, but there's a kernel of something in there. You can see it. I'll watch that, but I've also watched really well-produced web series that had giant plot holes. that have been very successful for, industry kind of shit. But, I think that this is the time for this kind of stuff to happen. I think that right now has never happened before.
Yep.
And it's great to be in it.
And I think that the economic crunch and like world events are forcing creators such as yourself and other independent thinkers to be more creative in reaching their audience and to be a more actually even be more forceful to reach that audience, because they know that the networks aren't competition like they used to be, and neither are a lot of the other contemporary people doing what they're doing in that space. There's the technology is cheap enough to do this is the time when real storytellers are going to have an opportunity to really make an impact, and it's starting to it's starting to happen all the time. You see things like what would happen with Sam Raimi buying up the rights for to make a motion picture of the guy who did that robot thing on YouTube.
Right.
And the same thing actually happened with, that was how District 9 got made, and very similar story. And you see this kind of stuff all the time. So I'm excited.
That's true, but I think the thing is, like, that gold rush mentality is what is the problem with the web series world, is that they're playing that lottery ticket mentality instead of playing the storyteller mentality.
No, and I agree. I subscribe, and I had this conversation with someone earlier today, actually from, I think who was it, when I spoke with someone from Indiegogo. I was talking with them today, and I said, I am very much of the mind of the, in the end, there can be only one. I call it the Highlander method. And basically what that is there, at the end, there can only be someone to do something first. There can only be one first for anything. Everything else, there's a secondary set to that I call the Coke versus Pepsi, the taste challenge, as it were. But what it is next is, there can only be one guy to be the first guy to do, or girl, to do anything. The next thing is there's going to be the pale in comparison type of stuff. But in then that case, there can only be Coke versus Pepsi, so you have your two main competitors that are the people that do it, either next or whatever, and they compete kind of head to head. But there's enough usually market share for that. And then there's the Dr. Pepper, who is usually the tertiary. They don't do it quite as well, but they still get some audience from it. Everything after that is bullshit. You're not going to capture any type of significant audience market share. And at that point, and this goes not only from a creator perspective, but in distribution as well. I see distribution books and ebooks and all this other kind of bullshit out there all the time. They're like, I did it so you can too. And I'm like, no, you can't. It's not. Especially if your movie is more than a year old, your information is out of date. And that it's unfortunate, because the industry is changing so fast, and the distribution landscape is changing at such a rapid pace that the content creators who wish to capitalize on it can't even keep up. The copycats can't even keep up.
No, that's true. And the thing about with the distribution model, like, the idea of entertainment has always been mass audience. Like, that's what everybody wants. They want a huge audience. But everything is about niche now. The networks have been fragmenting their own audiences with their own cable channels.
Yep.
What Viacom does, what Disney does, they're all like, well, there's a food channel and there's a cooking channel.
Yep.
So already, now you throw in video games, now you throw in the internet, now you throw in Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, all the rest of it. Fragment. You throw in Twitter, now it's even fragmented more. And now those things are starting to come together. So I think the reality of perhaps, because I think the other thing with web series is people are talking about curation.
Yeah.
Like having people curate. Oh, it's a curated site. I have chosen you a bunch of good shows to watch. Really? How about this? Fuck you. How about I'll just buy my own? Who watches TV like that? Nobody does.
No.
I go to a website and they tell me, Rotten Tomatoes is one thing, but having some, we think this is good, you should watch this. That's the video store shit. That's bullshit.
Yeah. I think we've done our own kind of quote unquote experiment in curating ourselves with the live FilmSnobbery Live or FilmSnobbery Live presents, like a day at the Palace and stuff like that, where we actually showed people's movies in theaters. And you want me to tell you what the failure on that is that neither the forum that we're screening in nor the filmmakers seem to give a shit about promoting their work being shown, and that angers me to a point where I could punch babies. And it's very frustrating, because at the end of the day, it reflects slightly bad on me only to the event coordinators that I'm working with, where an audience won't show up. But at the end of the day, it's a testament to just how successful that person's going to be in the future, because if they're not going to even bother to bring an audience to their own screening, it's retarded. It goes against what they set out to do. You set out to make a movie or make a web series or whatever the hell you're doing to get an audience, and not only to get an audience, but to put it in front of people who enjoy it, and because you enjoyed making it, hopefully, and you want other people to experience that story and that passion.
I hope so, but it seems like, and I understand more of the motivation is to get a job and a paycheck, and I understand it all makes sense, but I feel like building an audience can be. I think, if you have your own audience as a filmmaker, whatever form you're telling your story in, then, and however big or small that audience is, and even if you're an individual actor or writer or musician, if you're not in the game, if you're not on Twitter, if you're not on Google Plus and Facebook and building your own thing, that even when decisions are made in terms of casting, if somebody has 1.2 million followers, they have an audience already.
Yeah.
Like Chris Hardwick I've known Chris since like 98, 99. I've done a lot of stand-up with him.
Yep.
And when we were fundraising, he tweeted about our Kickstarter campaign. And it gave us a little bump, but it's like, he is his own thing. And now he's got a BBC show coming, actually two of them, and watching what that guy has done with his podcast and with the stuff that he's done on G4 and integrating all of it.
Yep.
Like that, it's individual. It's about niche. It's about individual audiences.
Yep.
It's about building your own thing.
And I hate to be the guy who's spouting out like your personal brand and bullshit like that, but the sad part is that is part of it. And Chris
Absolutely,
Hardwick, Chris Hardwick as the Nerdist is a very good example. Like Kevin Smith, another good example. Even to us, while we're a poor example in comparison to those people, people know. It's the reason why I now cannot not do this show. It's because people know me for this, or know my face for this show, or know me for Film Snobbery. You become the de facto face of your product or brand or show or whatever it is that you do once you put yourself out there like that, and you cultivate, and you're there with your fans and or followers or whatever you want to call them. And
I like audience. Just because
I like
feel
audience.
Like that's what they are.
Yeah.
And it's a little more like, I always feel like fans sort of, I don't know, it's top down.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about the word audience is that it implies that there's a lack of engagement in the word audience to me.
I would agree with that. Well, actually, what's interesting is somehow the audience for Vampire Mob got the nickname the V Mob. So like all the behind the scenes videos I made with my phone, I always say, "Hi V Mob," because somehow that's like their V Mob, the V Mob, V Mobbers. There's also the Mobettes, who are a core group that's slowly getting bigger. But
Nice.
So I do have that. But yeah, there's something about, because some people are saying that they're like we have a couple of quote unquote fangirls who are very appreciative of Mr. John Colella, let's say.
It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, no, trust me.
We don't have that here. We have people who.
Trust
no.
me, I'm an actor. You will notice I am not on camera. I'm not in the cast.
Yes, but you know what? The personality. There's no doubt in my mind that you've not done. That you have done rather stand up before, because you can tell you have. And not only that, practiced, because you have a very good rhythm to what you do and what you say, and as much as it sounds like I'm sucking cock right now, it's people like.
And also, I did a podcast with Jackie Cation called The Dork Forest, which she's still doing, and she does that at Nerd Melt, which is Meltdown Comics, which is where Nerd Industries is also based. She does live recordings there, but I did we did a show every single week for 2 years. The first 2 years Blog Talk Radio opened.
Wow.
Or like the first month we had a show when they opened, and then she kept going, and now she does it off. She just records it normally, puts it up on iTunes.
And that reminds me, I believe, if I was going through Twitter today, and forgive me if I'm wrong, I believe Meltdown Comics was actually looking for I think it was like 100,000, they're counting down to like their 100,000th or 10,000th, something like that, follower. And I think they were giving away something or doing something once they hit their thing, so their goal. So if you guys haven't followed them by now, you probably should, because
and if you're ever in LA, like, I'm not a huge comic book guy, but I've gone to stand-up shows there and screenings there, and it's a really cool store. It's a really cool place. And if you are into any kind of comic book stuff, you'll lose your mind in that place.
I gotta tell you, the first time I ever went even to like the Jay and Silent Bob Steaker stash in Red Bank, I really had, I was blown away. I'm a huge comic book nerd. We've got one cool thing we have here in Massachusetts, and it's a place I hang out at fairly often. There's a big warehouse of a comic book shop in Worcester called That's Entertainment. And
I don't know that at all.
Oh my God! This place it's like a huge, almost warehouse type of building, and not only do they have collectibles, they have toys on top of the rows of back issues. So like old Star Wars toys and He-Man toys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like they've got them all there. They've got glass cases with the more valuable ones and stuff like that. Voltron and all that kind of fun stuff. But then all along the walls are first of all, they're a huge purveyor of independent books, and I'm huge about that. I love the fact that they really support independent content there. They got a whole wall just for indie books, and then they have obviously Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, all those guys in alphabetical order all along the walls, going stretching all the way, I think, on 2 huge walls of the warehouse. They have shirts, and they got toys, and they have video games, like used video games and stuff like that. It's like you walk in and it's like a flea market for the feeling anyway. It's like a flea market of nerddom. It's like you want to go anywhere in there, and it's just like I want to buy like an old Ghostbusters, like Venkman, Peter Venkman, from the real Ghostbusters back in the day, like the toy for like $3. You can go buy that, and at the same time, you can pick up 10 back issues of like Spider-Man 2099 and like the new edition of Ultimate Spider-Man where they killed off Peter Parker. Like, I mean, they just have everything, and it's just.
Have you gotten into any of the electronic comics?
Yeah. Oh, I actually, on my, which I don't have on me right now, I do have the Comixology app, and I do read some in DC new releases, usually just like the teasers for them, but occasionally I'll buy some of the free ones, or buy, quote unquote, some of the free ones, and stuff like that. I do, but I'm waiting to get possibly, and this may happen, people, I'm excited, we may have a tablet coming here to the show, and I'm excited from a potential sponsor. I don't want to give out their name now because they're not giving me the product yet. But so at the moment, fuck them.
That only seems fair.
It does seem fair. But let's just say this particular product, it's a tablet, and I'm looking forward to not only what I can do on the show here with it, replacing this shitty laptop that's literally, if I unplug it, it will die. I will not have a laptop anymore. But the next step for that is I want to take it, I want to put in filmmaking apps on it, and I want to demo them at film festivals and at conferences and stuff like that. And I just find it to be a much more portable device for the world that I live in, especially because I do so much work that's already in the cloud. So there's not, and I'm a tech geek. I used to be a network engineer, so I understand how to use this for what I need. And plus doing impromptu screencasts and stuff like that will make my life. Yeah, I'm really excited. I really hope that this pans out. If it does pan out, I will be taking it to Alabama with me at the end of the month to the Sidewalk Film Festival. So hopefully that works.
Yeah, because I really, like, part of the look of season 2 is very kind of graphic novel. That's kind of what my intention was. But it's been in the back of my mind to maybe look at having like a parallel story that is like an electronic graphic novel, to make Vampire Mob, to have essentially a little arc that would be separate from the show, that would be done that way, because I just like the hard shadows and all the graphic stuff that I'm playing with in season 2. I love the look of that. Especially with these 5Ds. It's crazy what you can do with these things.
The only bitch, I would love to get a DSLR, but unfortunately for what we do, because I'd love to replace the Canon 5D, not the Canon 5D, what the fuck am I saying? I wish I had that. The Canon HV30, HV40s that we have. I would love to replace that with with something like a DSLR. The only one, though, that will do video out for like this live streaming is the Canon T2 and T3i.
Yep.
Which I don't have a problem with. I would totally do that. I don't have a budget for shit. I got to be honest. I found something really interesting, and I don't know if it's just me or what the situation is. I found that when we do things like Indiegogo campaigns, and unfortunately we don't use Kickstarter because we're so tied into Indiegogo. I got my brand loyalty. I love my peeps over there.
Hey, that sounds right. And the other thing is, like, I know what it's like to lose everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and
$6,000.
the problem, even if you just got the $6,000, you didn't make the full. At least you walk away with fucking $6,000. I
start from zero on October 30th.
Anyway,
all through the holidays.
The thing I noticed, though, and it pisses me off a little bit, is that I worked for the past 3 years or so, and this is going to be my little rant and my little bitch session, not necessarily directed to anyone in particular or the audience in particular, but it is what it is. I've worked my ass off for 3 years to promote independent film, whether it's been through reviews, going to film festivals, whether it's been doing a show like this, whether it's been, just helping other people by tweeting campaigns or doing whatever. The thing that pisses me off is that I'll go do an Indiegogo campaign for something that matters to me, whether it's to get us to South by Southwest for my speech I did there in March, or to get new lights. I am down to one fucking light that works now because the other two literally melted. Just there's a lot of things that I would love to go to my audience for. I can't go to my audience because my audience, whether it's because we don't have that tangible end product like you do, or like other independent creators do, like you do this, we get this happens. For me, this is an ongoing situation. So if I don't meet my goal, I think people just assume, well, fuck it, he'll be here next week anyway. It doesn't matter. I don't know what the mentality is, but the fact is that every campaign we've tried to run, with the exception of one, has not been successful. And I don't understand at the level that we play at, and not saying like we're a high level. What I mean is, like, we have a reach, an obvious reach of people that we've interacted with over the years and whatever. I just think, unfortunately, our audience is poor because they're filmmakers. They're hoarding their money for their productions.
But I think the other part of it, and what I kind of realized during that Kickstarter campaign, is that when we lost all of that money and I had to start over, it took us 6 months to raise $10,000. So I think part of this is just this window of time for people like us who have, you look at our views. Like, I've had the first episode out of season 2 since like June 21st, and maybe it's at 1,700 views right now.
Yep.
So our audience is tiny, but we raised that money, but it took 6 months.
Right.
So I think part of it, and the other thing I did was I had eBay auctions for different things, and that is the one thing that a show like yours, to get DVDs or to get products or get that kind of thing, or packages to put together and to auction them off on eBay, maybe that is the way to do it incrementally instead of just doing this one giant campaign to make it happen. That is just part of the deal, and that it's this little $5, $10, $20 eaten away until you have the money. But yeah, 30 days, sometimes it's just not enough. No, it isn't. And I don't know. I just think that the urgency for what we do does not seem to be present in the same way that it is when a filmmaker is trying to raise a budget for a production. And regardless of the platform, regardless of the amount, it's just really weird. I don't know if I would love to know what the consensus mentality is on that, because to me, as someone who spends literally my entire waking life promoting your content, by you I'm saying generically you, like the royal we, promoting your content, to be able to ask for that in return very sporadically and not get the return on that investment, what I feel is a time investment anyway, it kind of hurts a little bit. But anyway, that's me just bitching. I mean, this is obviously way off topic from Vampire Mob and the show in general. But the thing is, like, I put the show out, and when I see, the view count's not where I like it to be, I'm like, hey, again, it's like I don't feel like what we're doing is not of a quality that will draw a larger audience. It's just going to take some time, because if giant corporations with marketing dollars can't make TV shows successful, then it's going to take, a couple of guys a while to get the word out about a show.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's the mentality I try to actually keep in terms of when I'm actually doing stuff like this, is I try to keep the mentality of, this is not a sprint. It's definitely a slow walk in the park, as it were. And we have to stay malleable. We have to stay. I think that staying hungry the way we have, in terms of both cash and other things, has kept us on our creative toes to have to come up with new ways to get this content out there and to do the things we want to do. The only time when it gets really stressful is when it's like, okay, we're going to go repo your car now. And it's like, I kind of need that to live.
I agree. And I don't think I don't think we should starve to do stuff, but I think sometimes to get a project going, and when it's an indie thing, it's not easy. Otherwise, a lot more people would do it. Whatever you're doing, web series or it's a lot of work, and again, that's why I go back to if you want to make whatever it is you want to make, and like I know web series people are like, I only need $250,000 to shoot my season, and I'm like, why? And he's like, well, part of $50,000 is the red, and I'm like, okay, so if you didn't shoot it on the red, I'm like, why are you shooting a web series on a red? Why?
We're the average pixel. What do we call it? Let's see, 16 by 9 aspect ratio. But what do I want to call it? Oh Christ, not HD versus standard def. I'm talking about the 640 by 480 type of thing. Like most people view it in like a 540 max, unless they were viewing it on a television where it is an actual 1080p type of situation.
But even beyond that, there isn't a monitor on the planet that is good enough to show how good the red is, and you're shooting a web series.
Yeah.
So you can shoot it on a T2i, still gonna look pretty good.
I agree.
And it just saves all that money.
At the end of the day, HD is HD, and honestly, if you have a red, the red as a production camera is great. The lenses will kill you after the fact, and then the workflow in terms of editing and stuff like that is going to kill you. And you know what the funny part is that for you to shoot on a T2i, first of all, you're never going to broadcast anything in 4K, 2K or 4K on a computer anyway. That's number one. Number two, you shoot on a T2i or you shoot on a 7D, 5D, whatever, and you look at the workflow. You're not just looking at the overall output. You're going to look at file size. Who you're gonna have 2 terabytes to and plus backups to store those 2K 4K files. I mean,
I'm riding 10 terabytes.
Yeah, our show. I've got
backups. Plus, I've got offsite backup. Not even touching that.
I've got 5 terabytes right now with 2 terabytes roughly in spare right now that I'm on spread across 3 different computers. And yeah, I agree. I'm this close actually to literally shipping everything up to Amazon S3 and just having that as my archive, because it's relatively unlimited storage and it's pennies on the dollar, and it's only as secure as I want to make it.
The files are just so huge, and because we shoot 3 cameras, so I've got to do all the transcoding for 3 cameras, and then I've got to do all the sound syncing for 3 cameras. Then I do all the backups for original footage, original audio. Then all the post versions of all of that, and then offsite, onsite. So the workflow is, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do is I number my scenes and I number my story days, so I know, because we shot way out of sequence, so I know what actors are supposed to have on what day in terms of clothes.
Right.
And then I have all my files by date, and the date corresponds to a scene number, and that's how I can keep track of everything.
Well, I highly recommend.
Yeah.
I highly recommend, in terms of script breakdowns and stuff like that, location breakdowns, wardrobe, cast, crew, the whole 9 yards. You really got to get in touch with. He's in the audience right now. His name is Devin Watson. He's also not only is he an author, but he's a geek. And I say that lovingly because he is kind of a fellow nerd like myself. But he created a piece of software called Pre-Producer that is unfucking believable. I've been beta testing it or alpha testing it, I don't know what you want to call it, in incremental little bits for about a year now. And this guy's software, once he does release it, I'm going to tell you, revolutionize pre-production. It's just going to be, it will literally basically do your pre-production for you. You take your script, import your final draft or XML or whatever the hell the format is, script in there. It does everything for you. It's like you import it and it's done. There's no need for a fucking line producer at that point. It does that job for you.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I write the script and then I write it to locations I know. I write it to actors that we've already cast. We didn't have any auditions, and then we just go do it. Like, yep. There's no team. That's the thing, that because I didn't go to film school, because I don't have, I mean, I've been on sets, I've worked on sets, but I don't have that whole, like, the assistant director is Sila Angele. He's the other guy with the other camera. There's two of us. Done. That's the crew. We got it's either my wife or Patrick Caverty holding the stick with the mic on it. So that's it. And work lights. That's it. Makeupers. That's it. There's no gap, DP, nothing.
Yep.
I monitor the boom while I'm operating the 5D. Like, that's how bare bones you can do it. With work lights from Home Depot. It's so simple.
Yeah, no, and that is keeping things lean and mean like that is what will continue to be able, you will be able to continue to make shows because you know how to keep it tight. And actually, as you transition over to larger projects and stuff like that, knowing how to having that skill set to be able to keep things down to that minimum and a smaller budget, and knowing how to be creative to get the shots you need and stuff like that, that is only going to increase your value and cachet as you move on to larger budgets or larger projects and stuff like that. Because, you know, if they know you can shoot something and it's quality and it's going to come in on time and under budget, people like that.
Yeah, that's right. No, and I agree with that. And I you know, I'm producing the thing too. I mean, there were definitely some, and that's the great thing is you learn a lot shooting 130 pages.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, because I was on some. Where was I? Oh, I was getting feedback actually at the IWTV at one of their screenwriting. They'll do like table reads, and somebody was saying that you can't have a cast. This is a rule, feedback to a writer. You can't have a cast of 20, because you can't, because ensemble casts don't work, and all this like commercial demographic, blah blah blah. And I said, well, as someone who has a cast of 21, you can if you have a main character that brings you through all those characters. You just got to be able to write it.
Yep, and I will make mention that for fans out there of low budget productions and like we've been talking about keeping it tight and all that, tight like a butthole. My co-host, Mr. Jerry Cavallero, his movie Stuck Like Chuck. The reason why his company is called On My Own Productions is because he was the only crew on his production, which was a feature. It's 86 minutes long. And yeah, and Stuck Like Chuck is.
Congratulations, man! That's great. We need more of that.
Do me a favor.
I'll vote that.
Yeah. Yeah, Jerry is he's the Aquaman of independent film.
That is very cool. Because the thing is, like when John Colella and I shot like that whole opening scene in the first episode of season 1, I didn't know how to shoot a car interior. Moving, he had to operate the car, so I couldn't light it. And I Googled, like, car interior, and I found a director of the DP for 24, and he said that they shoot a lot of their car interiors on Van Nuys Boulevard, because the streetlights have 3 heads. So we just went out, and I've got headphones on, I got the VX2000, I'm all lit up against the monitor, I got the furry mic, and it's just the two of us. And we're shooting that whole scene, and there is cops driving by us constantly.
And they're like, "Are you shooting something in here?" I'd be like, "No, I'm just giving him a blowjob." And he's like, "Move on."
The thing is, we're driving that car. We've got 2 45s in the car. We have 2 switchblades in the car, and we have giant glass jars filled with fake blood in the back seat. And I'm like, and he's got bangs in. I'm like, if we get pulled over, this is going to be the funniest LAPD car search in a long time.
I would just be like, "Keep rolling, keep rolling."
But check the blooper reel on our YouTube channel, because that's exactly what we did. We kept rolling with LAPD out back, and John is just improvising. I only used one little second of it because I am not an improv guy. Like when I write the script, we shoot the script. I don't have time for improv.
Well,
but he would just get dicking around, and LAPD's right outside the car window the whole time.
Well,
no permits ever.
I think what we're going to do, let's take a quick break. Let's have Jerry do a quick contest for us, and then what we'll do is we'll come back, and you can stick around the rest of the show if you want. But we got a little bit more we got to move on. But feel free to stick around. And Jerry, I'm going to leave it to you right now. Let's start the contest, because then we gotta theoretically pay some bills because we don't get paid for this next ad, but I do support them. So take it away, Jerry.
Okay, so I'll go with a really quick contest so we can get right to your ads, Nick.
Yay!
Everyone, I'm going to put something in the chat room. First person to tweet it out wins. You get a 1-year subscription to Movie Maker magazine and a T-shirt, both courtesy of First Glance Film Festival. So at First Glance Film, I got it right this time. And that's it. First person to tweet out wins.
There you go. So check out what Jerry put there in the chat room, and the first person to tweet that out is going to win a 1-year Movie Maker subscription and a T-shirt from First Glance Film Festival. Check them out because the festival in Philly is coming up in October, and they're opening call for entries for their First Glance Hollywood is open now. So check them out. They've been around for over 10 years now. I mean, they've been doing this for a while, and it's a great festival. I can't say enough good things about it, and enough good things about Bill Ostroff, the festival director, not just because he's actually in my chat room right now, but because he's just a good guy. So that being said, while we wait to find out who the winner is going to be, I'm going to show a quick little ad from our good friends over at Indie Picks Unlimited. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more with Joe Wilson, and we'll also we got to talk about our Indiegogo project of the week, which I think everyone will find interesting. And I got one more final thing I definitely want to talk about before we get out of here, and that's about it. Then that'll be the show, and I'm sure Joe and I will continue talking afterwards. So we'll be right back, and stick around. And welcome back, everyone. I am excited. So, Jerry, I know that. Do we need to give a couple more minutes to the contest tonight, or do we have anything going on? Because we can. I got plenty of time to fill. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and let's do our Indiegogo project of the week first, and then we'll get the contest out of the way. Remember, just retweet out first person to that hasn't already won, by the way, to tweet out. I'm watching at FilmSnobbery Live, so at First Glance Film. Better send me a subscription to at Movie Maker Mag and a T-shirt to cover up my shame. So definitely got to do that. And let's go ahead. Let's talk the Indiegogo project of the week. Let me just pull up a couple graphics here, and we will. Let's see. Here we go. Graphic. I don't know where I am in my own show. Here we are. There, and there. Awesome. Okay. All right. This week's Indiegogo project of the week is Dysfunction, and it's funny because you were talking a little bit about everyone's tired of hearing about the behind-the-scenes stuff of like Hollywood and stuff like that, but that's what this one is about. They actually are looking to they've got a goal of about $15,000, and they're actually most of the way there. They're at does that say 13? 13 and change. I can't really read my own stuff over there. 13 and change. Let's just go with that. And so they're almost there. And the great part again, folks, about Indiegogo is that if they don't actually make the full 15, they're still going to walk away with 90% of what they've got. So let's help them get to where they need to be. You can go ahead. You can either give money. If you don't have money, we always say it. Give time. Just throw them a tweet. Give them a Google Plus one. Like them on Facebook. Do what you got to do to get the word out on that. I actually have their pitch video here. I'm going to give you guys a little taste of, and then when we come back from their pitch video, we got a little bit more here with Joe Wilson, and we've got one more little topic I definitely want to talk about before we wrap up the show for the night, and that'll be it. So stick around, enjoy the little pitch video here for Dysfunction.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan Lemasters. I'm the director of Dysfunction.
My name is David Bianchi, and I'm the writer, one of the producers.
My name is Val Tasso, and I'm one of the producers.
My name is Christina Jolie, and I'll be one of the producers.
My name is Carlos Ramirez, and I am playing the role of Bobby.
I'm Sally Kirkland, and I read this script called Dysfunction.
You want to know what Dysfunction is?
It's about artists.
C-level Hollywood types.
They'll bang on your face.
Dark comedy or dramedy or drama with comedy.
It's what you wake up in the morning saying to yourself, what happened? When you wake up without your clothes on and saying, where am I?
Dysfunction is a story of 9 C-level Hollywood types that all work in the Hollywood machine and live under the same roof, the same decrepit mansion. And
they're all renting a room from the character of Clarel, who's a landlord, and Clarel will be played by Sally Kirkland.
She's the matriarch of the house, and she's a bit of a diva, and I think she intimidates the hell out of the other 8 people who live in the house.
We've got Oscar-nominated and Golden Globe winner Sally Kirkland. You know her from Anna, JFK, Ed TV. We've also got Emilio Rivera from Sons of Anarchy. We've also got Carlos Ramirez involved. We've also got Jerry Bednob from Zach and Miri Make a Porno and 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Not only do we have a great cast, we have a great team of people that are going to be working on this film, which is more the reason for you to become part of this project.
The film already has distribution with Synchronize, which is a subsidiary company of Lionsgate. We are guaranteed for theatrical and theatrical release, DVD, domestic, and international.
Now, mind you, distribution is not the same thing as funding. We still need your help.
To give you an idea of who we are and what we've done,
here's a little quick montage of some of our body of work.
What the hell are you doing?
What am I doing?
Oh. You're trying to trap me in wordplay so that you can clock out for the night.
Now that you've seen what we're all capable of, the film is scheduled to shoot this summer for 21 days.
We wanted to give you the opportunity not just to see the film when it's done, but to join in and be a part of this with us.
We're reaching out to you guys because, you know, you've touched our lives in one way, shape, or form.
This is going to be a great way, guys, to be a part of Hollywood and to be part of a really good project and to say you're involved with a project with this type of talent.
I'm extremely confident that when you see this picture in theaters, you will be very proud to have been part of this project.
And there's so many different incentives that we're offering depending on what you can actually offer us, ranging to being able to visit us on set, to potentially having even a line in the film and being a principal player. So come on board with us on this journey. Dysfunction is a wild roller coaster ride.
You want reality? This is it. Dysfunction.
All right, folks, we're back, and we're actually back with Mr. Joe Wilson of Vampire Mob, and we the reason why I wanted to kind of say the reason why I picked that particular Indiegogo project of the week was because the one thing that stood out that they do that they did in their pitch video that a lot of other people don't do is they gave me a very clear reason of why they wanted us to donate. they had, like, their pitch video was less of a trailer or a reel or whatever. They actually had some very well thought out statements of, this is why you should give to us, and this is, you know, what we're going to do. And I appreciated the approach on it. It felt more like a pitch video and less of just like, could you hand me some money, please? So anyway, that's what I felt about it. Whether or not the movie turns out good or not, we don't know, because they're making it, but apparently they've got a distribution deal, so good on them. So what we're going to do here is I do actually have a winner for the contest that we put out here. And Joe, you with us?
I am.
Oh, awesome! I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna announce that winner right now. It's you.
It's me.
It's you.
Well, thanks.
Because you're the only person, I think, in our audience right now who hasn't actually won something from us recently. So by default, you're the winner. And also because I think that you would look very snazzy walking around with a First Glance Film Festival t-shirt on, and also who doesn't like reading Movie Maker magazine? So there you go.
Excellent. I'll trade you a "We're All Famous for a Few People" t-shirt, or I'll say you won one.
Nice, excellent. Yeah, so we'll hook up after the show. We'll exchange info, and we'll get you your stuff out as soon as we possibly can. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I would love to get your feedback on it, Joe, is what the other thing. I got something in the mail today. I immediately watched it, which is something I rarely do. Usually, a lot of the movies that I get end up sitting on my shelf for like a month or more because I get so many.
I was the judge for the SAG Awards 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and I was swimming in DVDs.
I can imagine. My house, the analogy I use is it's like a UPS drop station. Like, I literally go out to my mailbox every day, and look, I don't even need Netflix or Redbox. I just get movies in the mail anyway. And it's okay. It's also kind of a bit of a curse because then I feel the pressure of, oh my God, I need to do something with this, especially when the pile starts to grow and stuff. And I've since found a couple ways around that and a couple ways to expedite the process, but it's still, Jesus. For those film festival programmers and stuff that are out there, and for people like yourself that judge award shows and stuff, I feel your pain. I really do, especially because
I wanted the exact amount of time it was going to take me to judge. I asked them, I'm like, I'll be a judge, but you have to tell me exactly how much content I'm looking at.
Yep.
Because it's a lot of time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the problem is, I never, especially with first-time filmmakers, I never want to say that I've seen a bad movie, but I've seen some shitty work. You know, it's just like
same with web series. I mean,
yeah,
I was trying to be so positive, but it's just like, some of it's just cable access.
If that, I mean, it's. Yeah, no, I agree. But the one thing I watched today that I really wanted to plug, and I'm gonna throw up. I actually do have graphics and whatnots for this. I watched it today, and I'm really excited to talk about it. Is not only it's called Browncoat's Redemption. It's actually a DVD that was made as it's a fan film actually for the Serenity and Firefly universe. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because it's a fan films are a variety of indie film and or web series that doesn't really get talked about a lot, except I'm guessing in their circles. It's something that's out there that if you're looking for an audience, I mean, you can get some really good stuff from publicity from things like this. And one of the things I really love that they're doing is they've got some movies that we know directors that are working with, producers that are working with, that are like, oh well, we're gonna work with this charity like the United Way. These guys proceeds support 5 amazing charities. These guys are working with 5 different charities, including, let's see, it's actually a little bit easier to read up here. Let me see if I can, let's see here. Where are the charities? Anyway, lots of charities. I can't read shit here. Kids, let's see, Kids Need to Read, the Al Wooten Jr. Heritage Center, this looks like something here for dyslexia, and Equality Now. So I mean, they've got a bunch of charities that they're supporting with these DVDs. It's actually the movie itself was blessed by Joss Whedon, It's been shown at conventions all over the place, and I got to tell you, for what they made it on and what they did with it, I'm really impressed. Also, I'm really impressed it shipped to me with a soundtrack. And not only the soundtrack, they actually had the actual liner notes for the soundtrack and everything. Like full credit to the bands and everything. I was really, really impressed. Audio on it, there were a couple, spots in the audio, particularly the action scenes that needed some work. A little more downplayed than they should have been. But overall, I mean, I was really impressed. They built all their own. The special features actually go ahead and they show you how they built all their own sets, and including like the ship. The CG is actually, I felt like I was watching it on television. And they got support from a lot of the supporting cast from Firefly and Serenity. Like Adam Baldwin is in it, the guy who plays Niska from one of the Firefly episodes is in it. Sonny Rhodes makes a cameo. He's the guy who does the theme song for Firefly. They really just nailed a lot. Alan Tudyk. They got interviews with Alan Tudyk and Adam Baldwin, and there's a little cameo with Nathan Fillion, and this thing they do where it's called "I'm a Brown Coat," which is I thought that was really kind of cool. It's really just that fan film, that love letter to the audience and for the material and the universe that they're playing in. I love that kind of stuff. Joe, what do you think?
I think that sounds like a great idea, actually. Jonathan Woodward, the actor who was in who's in Buffy,
yep.
Angel, and Firefly, there's a podcast video show called Those Video Guys, and he was a guest on that show, and they review Vampire Mob. So here's a guy who was in all the Buffy and Angel, giving a thumbs up to us. And I think the thing with the great thing about these kind of films is that no one is under the delusion that they're making something that is, going to they're going to sell it or whatever. Like they really they're making it because they love the show. They love the story.
It's
the characters.
It's the definition of a passion project, and
exactly.
And the support that you can see that they got for coming from the cast and from the people at large. I think it was Comic-Con. There was a I think it was a Comic-Con. There was a scene where there was at a panel, stuff like that, and everyone was. You see people singing like the theme, and you see people doing like the "I'm a Brown Coat" type of thing, and it's just it evoked a real emotional response from me, because it's just I don't know. I mean, I love that universe as well because I like the ideology of it, but I don't know.
I think the thing is that that is what. Like when I broke down kind of like why I do all this stuff, and I love being an audience member and being affected, and I think that's when I kind of was making the transition from photography to installations to performance to what I'm doing now is when I'm writing it, when I'm shooting it, when I'm editing it, I'm an audience member. I'm it's going to be like this, it's going to make me feel like this, and I think that's the thing with these kind of projects and shows that people get into. You get into the world, and like Jackie Cation from the Dork Forest, her husband Andy is a video game designer, but he's also a huge RPG dork, huge. They did Adventure Brothers, RPG. He's done a number of Deadwood ones.
Yep.
The passion of putting those things together. I've never done one, but putting them together is so much work.
Oh yeah.
It's unbelievable what goes. He's hardcore.
Speaking of the Venture Brothers, you mentioned real quick, for folks who do love the Venture Brothers, and I actually, it's one of my favorite cartoon series of all time. We're going to have James Urbaniak on the show in the near future.
Oh, very good.
The voice of...
He was, Jackie just did a live thing with him at Nerd at Meltdown.
Yep.
With him and Dana Gould.
Yeah, and I'm really excited. I mean, the voice of Dr. Venture himself, and I'm
very cool.
A real talented guy. Thrilling Adventure Hour, obviously, and
yeah. Actually, Kirsten Banks Ness, she does that also.
Yep, yeah. We've had a couple of the alums of that on. We've obviously we've had Sam Levine and Amber Benson, and we all those kind of people. They all kind of run in the same circle. As a matter of fact, most of them have the same publicist, and who I happen to know, Melanie Marquez. Quick shout out for her because she's awesome. But yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that. And you're right, though. I mean, there's this extended universe of things that come out of the passion for these worlds and stories, and it brings in not only a whole new audience to the original content, but also brings in, it's like Star Wars fan fiction and Star Wars fan films, and even the extended universe in terms of books and video games and stuff like that. That's been so fan driven over the years that, I mean, there's just completely separate universes for a lot of the things that have happened outside of the canon that Lucas set forth,
I agree. And the thing is, like, the Venture Brothers is a definite influence on Vampire Mob. I really love the show and the humor and the world that he built, or they built. And the weird thing is, I didn't know that I knew Doc Hammer from Boston from the 80s.
Really?
Until I became a fan of the show. And it was actually Jackie Cation sent me a link to him at Comic-Con, and I'm like, that looks like Eric Hammer. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Eric Hammer. And I'm like, I photographed that guy. And Lisa Hammer, who is the voice of Trinity, with their band Requiem in White back in Boston in the 80s. Like, we lived in the same dorms that this company owned, and he was going to the museum school where my wife Kathy Zaloga went. And it was so bizarre. It's like, oh my God, I know that guy.
Yep.
And he's an influence on Vampire Mob. But I became a huge fan of that world. And that's the thing, is like the idea of the Venture Brothers and the way that world works and the systems and all the rest of it, it's just genius.
Yeah, and for those of you out there who are also fans of it or haven't been introduced to it yet, I think they're on Adult Swim, right? They have a 3-hour marathon type of situation going on, or a 3-hour kind of special event that they're doing on Adult Swim very shortly for the Venture Brothers, and I'm totally psyched for it. I think they're doing like a music video, and they're doing a bunch of other like weird things, and they're really. As a matter of fact, I actually called when I was an IT guy. I was a network engineer. I have this, and I actually use it for when I go to film festivals as well, because it's just a good carry-all. It's a messenger bag, and I call it my magic murder bag. Which if you're a fan, because I keep everything in it, no matter what I need, it's in that bag, and so oddly enough, a lot of times what other people need is in that bag as well. So I called it my Dr. Killinger magic murder bag.
I have a Dr. Henry Killinger T-shirt.
Yeah, there you go. So you know what's up.
It's one of the con T-shirts.
Nice.
And the thing is, like, I'm not a huge comic book guy, but I love the Venture Brothers.
The funny thing is because for me that show captures the comic book aesthetic in animation.
Oh, I agree.
Especially like the way.
Don Hammer's such a great musician. The music on it is crazy.
Oh my God! It feels like I am, and I know that like it's the big in joke there in that show anyway. I do feel like I'm watching a Hanna-Barbera cartoon from the late 70s, early 80s, a la Johnny Quest and stuff like that. Like, it feels like, when I'm watching, oh God, what was it? I can't remember the, oh God, it was a card.
Johnny Quest, it is the obvious, the style, the look of it.
Well, they've literally had Johnny on.
Hammer has said at Comic-Con, like, it sucks. Johnny Quest sucks.
Yeah. Well, when they showed Johnny, when he was like tripping balls in the submarine in his underwear for the first time, I laughed my balls off. Like, I knew, like, when they killed off like Race Bannon and they had all this other stuff, and they were like subtly hinting at things, and then they fully on just blew out like an older. He's got the mustache and all that kind of stuff. Johnny Quest, and he's just insane and torqued out. I was just like, that is genius.
And that was absolutely like, I think it's like, let's just throw him under the bus. Let's just go do this.
But and stuff like the Venture Brothers, stuff like what we're talking about with Browncoat's Redemption here, and these different works that pay homage to their predecessors and stuff like that. It's a really good way for content creators in general to obviously. I mean, if you can you can never. It's like the people who approach me like, we're trying to get this to go viral, and I'm like, well, then you already failed. But that being said, there's something to be said for this, these things that live on with people after the fact, and not only compel them to get involved more in the universe, but then to create more. Firefly is the only Firefly and Serenity. I guess I'll say them as in tandem. Is the only a series that has ever been out there that I felt compelled to write fan fiction for. And I actually did. I wrote my own Firefly story.
Correct.
And it's the only time, one and only time I ever did it. It did get posted online on one of the Firefly forums somewhere, and got a lot of hits. People really enjoyed it. I got great comments, and it made me feel good that I was able to continue interacting with these characters after the fact. And it's the only time I felt compelled to write like that. Playing in someone else's universe. It's one thing when you're a kid, you're playing He-Man or something. It's like you see He-Man fighting Skeletor, and then you do it with your action figures, the same thing. But it's another thing when you're like, I think at the time I was 25 maybe, to be like, I want to write fan fiction, and that's not, to disparage the people who do that often, because, you see that for Doctor Who and Torchwood and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, obviously, and stuff like that.
I think Torchwood I could actually probably write fan fiction.
I love Doctor Who and Torchwood.
And the thing is, like, I got way into Torchwood. I've seen so little, like 2 episodes of Doctor Who. So I'm like working my way back to Doctor Who. And I know, like, Chris Hardwick is a giant, obviously, great Doctor Who fan. But yeah, I Torchwood. It's just it's such a great cast of characters, and the world and the way it works, and Captain Jack and Gwen, just the two of them just kill me. And I've only seen the opening scene of Miracle Day because I don't get stars. So it's done.
Sir, I'm not an advocate of piracy in any way, shape, or form, but let me tell you something. I knew I was going to be away for the first couple of episodes for that. I fucking torrented that shit like you wouldn't believe. I was just like, I have to watch it. And now, that being said, when that comes out on DVD or when that does go to something else, will I pay for it? Probably. I would buy comic books for Torchwood. I would pay to go to a convention to see John Barrowman or Eve Miles or anything like that. I would do that.
The video of them at San Diego was hilarious.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think that the great thing, the way that they have, like, that characters can die. I think that's the great thing about Torchwood. Like, they do not fuck around.
Yep.
And just keeping it down to just the 2 of the main ones and having them come back, it's just, it's a really, really cool.
And you know what the funny part about that? The funny part about that is that you say that's the whole premise behind Miracle Day. I don't know how far you've gotten into it. You said you only just kind of got to the beginning.
I saw the first episode.
Okay, the whole premise behind Miracle Day is that now nobody can die. Everyone is Captain Jack, except for Captain Jack. He can die now.
Yeah, exactly. Which again, genius.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like taking the Doctor and taking away his TARDIS. It's humanizing that character in a way that I thought was really the modus operandi of it was kind of cliche, but it was done in a way that I was interested enough in the characters, invested enough in the premise that I was able to be like, okay, it's the old switcheroo.
Right.
And that's good storytelling, and Stephen Moffat and the other people who work on Doctor Who, worked on Torchwood and stuff like that, they to me are some of the best fucking writers on television right now. I say Doctor Who every time. This episode of Doctor Who is my new favorite episode of Doctor Who, and I've been watching it literally since I was born because my dad used to watch it, and so I was born in '81. I've been watching that show since '81.
Yeah, I've watched a little of the ancient one that I've seen in repeats, but never really got into it. And
the old was it Jack Pertwee?
Like, haven't TV shows turned into like a book almost now? Where it's like you don't see it live, you don't see it when it's going, and then you go back to it later.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's the idea of live television, with the exception of like this form factor where the internet is always on 24/7. So doing something that is live gives you a potential to reach a larger audience just by virtue of the fact that I'm here. But the fact of the matter is that, with the exception of online, with on-demand and DVRs and all this other kind of stuff, people don't have to schedule their lives anymore. And I think that has taken away a lot of the power of television in general and that media industry. But at the same
collective experience.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. The only time now where collective experience like that means anything is in the theater. And even then, it's not the same as when you're watching WrestleMania at your house with like a group of people or something like that, where it's a more active and engaging social event. Going to the movies is not, I don't give a shit what anyone says. Going to the movies is not a social event. You sit there in the dark and you stare at the screen. The only thing you have in common with the people around you is that you're in the same room and you're facing the same way. Except for the girl I'm bringing, who usually has her face buried in my lap. But, or I shouldn't discriminate, girl or guy. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But the fact of the matter is that it's not the only thing that makes it an engaging experience is that, yes, you are experiencing it together in one room, and you're doing there is a bit of an investment. Mostly I find it more in comedy and horror, where there is an actual reaction, not where you don't see that.
Totally right about
yeah, you know.
I saw The Matrix at Grauman's Chinese on a late show, like the last show on a Friday night, and it was when they were showing the episode 1 trailer, and people brought their lightsabers, and it was like going to a convention.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. I camped out for tickets and then again stood in line for Star Wars Episode 1. And given, not the smartest move on my part, but I basically was amongst the nerds, myself included, and in that category. And, you know, that part of the experience was far more satisfying than the movie itself. And that's about building events around movies, and that's an advantage that independent filmmakers actually have, is they have the freedom to build an event structure around their premieres, around their films. If they truly insist on having something in a theater or having that communal experience, at least make a show of it. You know what I mean? And that doesn't have to cost money.
No, we screened. We've screened all of season 1 and the first 4 episodes of the premiere, and then we had a benefit where we screened it. So I've now seen, because doing stand-up comedy, I wanted to see, like, do these jokes work?
Yep.
Like, I want to hear this. I want to hear people laugh at this, and it was great. But again, I did it, so I don't need to, do it again. I will do with season 2 the same thing. We were planning on showing the whole thing, potentially showing everything at a premiere in the fall.
Yep.
If I can put it together. But yeah, same thing. You get that experience and then you move on. Doesn't have to cost much of anything. I bought one of the digital projectors and returned it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what credit cards were made for. Temporary purchases.
We had stand-up comedians do sets before, and then we showed a half-hour show.
Yep. No, completely agree with you. And and that note, it looks like we are losing a couple people here in the audience, because we've been going on now for 2.5 hours almost.
Yeah.
But what I want to do, guys, is we're gonna have Joe back on another time, and I'm gonna talk to him about a bunch of other stuff off the air. But I want to thank everyone who did show up on the show this week, and I want to thank obviously Joe for stopping by, talking about Vampire Mob again. I want to plug it, www.vampiremob.com. Check them out on Joe Wilson TV and on Twitter, and Vampire Mob on Twitter. And if you want to check out the movie that we were talking about here, Browncoats Redemption, check it out over at www.browncoatsmovie.com. And obviously support our good friends over at Indiegogo.com and all the projects that are out there, specifically the project of the week, which it was Dysfunction. And last but not least, if you're gonna watch some independent films, streaming them online, you couldn't do any better than going to IndiePixUnlimited.com and subscribing up there. They are the Netflix for independent films, so that should take care of all the plugs in the show. Make sure you check out the premiere, the world premiere online anyway, of Jerry Cavallero's Stuck Like Chuck on August 17th. And come on, I can think of worse ways to waste 86 minutes of my life. And so definitely do that. And
thanks.
You're welcome, sir. And you can check it out over at www.stucklikechuck.com. And that's the end of the show for this week, guys. And what we're going to do is, hopefully, Joe, you hold on after the show. We'll chat a little bit more if you got a minute.
Yeah.
And folks, we'll see you guys next week. Our shows are going to be a little erratic, kind of towards the end of the month, because I'll be at the Sidewalk Film Festival down in Alabama, and then I might be in New York for a couple of weeks. But we're working on some great guests, including, like we said before, James Urbaniak from the Venture Brothers and the Thrilling Adventure Hour, and independent filmmaker and creator of the Webby Awards, Tiffany Schlane, who's going to be coming on as well. So just with those two guests, should bring you guys coming back. So everyone have a good one. It was great chatting with everyone. I'm glad that the internet is now working for us in a capacity that doesn't kill us. Thank you, everyone, again for coming. We'll see you next week. FilmSnobbery.com every day, of course, for reviews and interviews that we do there. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/FilmSnobbery, Facebook.com/FilmSnobbery, YouTube.com/FilmSnobbery, and FilmSnobbery at a theater store near you. Whatever. I don't give a shit. And check us out here every week, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, FilmSnobberyLive.com, without the express written consent of Major League Baseball. Have a good one, guys.